What is up, everybody? I'm NoLucksGiven here with your afternoon snap, and today we're going to take a look at a coaching session that I did with a viewer that asked for some help towards hitting infinite this season. And I want to make it clear, this is not boosting, where basically I just play the game for someone. This is my honest attempt at teaching someone how to get better at Marvel Snap. And because of that, I think that this is actually a great video for anyone to watch that is looking to level up their game. I talk about a number of things that I think are important to think about while you are playing Marvel Snap, and there's a lot of just good fundamental stuff. I do also get into the weeds a little bit after each game. I break down what I thought were some mistakes and things that I would do differently, and some different interactions that the player might have missed. But I also just think it's a great resource just to hear some things that I think are important to think about while you are playing Marvel Snap. I do want to make sure that the comments on this video are constructive, as Jim was nice enough to allow me to record this and broadcast it on my channel. This is the type of content I've been wanting to put out for a while, because as someone that is very invested into Marvel Snap, sometimes I forget what is actually important for up-and-coming players to hear. And so I think that this is ultimately it's a long video, but I think there is a lot of knowledge to be gained along the way. So hopefully y'all enjoy, and I can do some more of content like this in the future, potentially with you. If you are struggling to hit infinite, I can get some other players in here and offer my advice to them. It looks like you are really close to hitting infinite, so
Five away, yeah.
I think, yeah, you've been playing some. So the big thing is, did you get infinite last season?
I got infinite once because I wanted the little gold Venom face back.
Sure.
In general, my motivation on hitting infinite is I see a card back that I say, I really want that.
Yep.
And so I did it at least once last season, or whichever time that happened. And then this current card back with the Hulk hand, the red Hulk hand holding the shield, with the gold highlights. I really want that, which is what drove this. Yeah.
So I think that, just like one thing, and this is going to seem even less applicable to you already at rank 95, is that, like, you already got to rank 95, you can get to rank 100. That's just straightforward. I think it might be a little bit more difficult, a little bit more competitive for the final stages of the push, but at the pace that you've been going so far, we're halfway through the season. You are probably, if you started your climb at rank, let's say 63, then you are already 75% or more of the way to infinite for the season. So you're on pace if you keep climbing at the same rate. And I think that's like a good thing to keep in mind, just in terms of like, okay, you're not infinite yet, but if you keep doing what you're doing, I think you're going to get infinite.
Good. Well, I hope. I mean, the worst thing I think I did when I was getting the Venom back is I just ground. I think I had a weekend free. And I grinded or ground, whatever the right word is. I ground through, all the matches I could and changed decks when I had a bad streak of luck. And I kept on pushing until I, either found opponents that were not as good as I was or didn't have as good of a deck. And I just, minimized the losses and maximized the wins, and I got there.
Yeah.
This one has been a lot easier because the deck that I'm currently using, which is I found
let's take a
on
look at that. Why don't we pop that up here? If you want to go to collection, get that on the screen while we're chatting here.
Thanks. I may be a little bit slow when it comes to the UI on Windows because I know the iPhone version by heart.
Yeah, for anyone watching, Jim typically plays on mobile. So they've just downloaded the PC client for us, so that way we could take a look at what was going on. And pretty straightforward Scream list. I've seen Scream definitely an uptick in popularity, kind of as a way to answer Captain America Sam Wilson, but also Sam Wilson Captain America is in the deck because it does have some synergies with Kraven. and it's just a good Doom 2099 deck, and just a pretty solid deck, I think, across the board right now.
And the other thing that's appealing to me about Captain America's shield is that will often step in and stops a card from getting killed, by a random, kill this card immediately type of thing. If it hits the shield, it just blocks it.
Sure, yeah, it's good to stop Red Guardian in particular. There's some other weird locations it can win, like Rickety Bridge is a big one that comes to mind, but it can also just win other locations randomly. But it seems solid. So is this a list that you personally made? Because I don't own Scream, so I can't speak to Scream decks specifically, but is this a list that you grabbed from somewhere or something you came up with?
Nope, I basically copied this off of a competitor's YouTube channel because he basically put up a video saying, these are the decks I recommend to climb to infinity.
Okay, you can shout him out. Who are we talking about?
This is KM Best.
Okay, great, yeah. He's pretty reliable, I think.
Yeah, well, I watched this video and I looked at the deck, and the way I know that a deck is good for me is I'll look at it and I'll say, "Oh, that's good," and then if it makes me laugh because I see where something could really toy with my opponent's thoughts, this is a deck for that. Yeah. Because this deck can bounce into different directions, and I think also, since I've not seen this as a meta-based deck, I think it will confuse many opponents, because while they may be looking for a particular style of deck with these cards, they're going to see movement coming out, they're going to see Doom coming out, they're going to see Scream and Captain America. It's really confusing. They don't know where it's going, and that gives me a psychological advantage.
Great. So what I want to do is I want to hop into a game, and there are... so what I want you to do is not snap and not retreat unless you really want to on the final turn of the game. You're allowed to retreat on turn 6, but otherwise don't snap, don't retreat, but tell me when in the game you would snap or you would retreat, and when you recognize what your opponent is playing. So those are the 3 things to think about. Don't snap or retreat, but tell me when you would, and then what is your opponent playing? And otherwise, feel free to queue it up.
Okay. So let's see, we go here and here. Yeah, the screen just feels odd to me because the phone is so concise. Here it's like, oh, there's space. Who designed this UI? Oh, and then I understand they're just making the UI so it's flexible.
Yeah, kind of out here for streamers a little bit. Just give you something in that extra space there.
It's like building websites for mobile devices versus building them for desktop screens.
Right.
Okay, so here I'm going to go with Captain just because I feel that I will get... I'm going to risk putting the Captain here because I want to crank him up as much as possible, and let's hope he doesn't go into the middle, but let's see where it goes. There we go, that's what I wanted. Okay, Victoria Hand, I have no idea where they're going right at the moment. -1 power, okay, I can live with that. Now I feel like I want to pop her up, and we'll see where we'll go from there.
And I might be quiet, I'm just jotting down some notes, just so you know.
Sure. Oh, he's got a Captain America. Okay. All right. Well, we're going to put the shield back here to start that Captain America jump. I don't like that he's building everything over there, so I'm going to see if I can pull a little bit away from whatever he's building there. And let's see what Polaris grabs. Great. Okay. And what is this new card? Oh, and thank you, screen.
Okay, good.
I have no idea what he's
out a Moonstone. Not bad.
Okay. Let's see, if you only have 1 card, here's +5 power. I am going to put Arrow down early a little bit just to see how he reacts.
That's good. Move around the Moonstone again.
We've got speed. Interesting. I have no idea what his deck is. Okay, final turn. I would not at this point do a retreat. I would probably not snap. I would just go for the 2. And at the moment, see, 7 and 5 is 12, or we could pop a Magneto down and pull those 2 cards over to our 12 side. I've got to go with Magneto because I think that's going to have more upsetting his plans power. So, okay, you've got a split play. Let's see what we can pull over. Let's see if that's under 23. Ronan. Ouch. Okay. Interesting. I should win this now, yes, because I'm not got the higher yes.
Yeah, it's very close. Very, very close there.
But I should do this because I appreciate when other people do it.
Great.
Okay. This has been.
So stay on this screen for me.
Yep.
Just so that way, while we talk about the game, we can have sort of some visual reminders here as well. So I do want to address one thing first off, just for any like viewers too to understand. Not everyone, like there could be an added pressure even with like, oh, watching somebody play over your shoulder and stuff like that. So to get those things out of the way, and especially like anything that I notice or that other people in the comments and stuff might notice, that's a good thing. That's why we're here, right?
Yep.
So firstly, this deck that we are playing is a Scream deck. I think basically that might be how it's titled, or you might have titled it Scream 2099, right?
Correct. Yes.
Turn 1, you had the Scream in your hand, I would be snapping.
Really?
Yeah, I'm snapping with this on turn 1. You had a pretty flexible curve with some ways to move your cards around. I don't think Avery was a bot based off the cards that they play, but that's always something that I'm thinking about too when before Infinite. Are we facing up against a bot, and does that apply additional incentive to try to snap? The other thing was just to try to figure out what your opponent was playing and when, and that was actually a little bit tough here. I think this opponent is playing a little bit off meta. Definitely an ongoing deck, right? With the Moonstone, identifying that as a key card I think is important. But I wanted to talk about some other just plays as the game went out, some potential missed synergy to think about with Ant Maze as that first location. That's another reason that I think a snap makes a lot of sense turn 1, because Ant Maze, you can punish your opponent by getting Scream down as early as possible, and you could potentially play into some synergy with Craven and Ant Maze, just punishing your opponent for moving and rewarding you for moving, potentially. Getting Captain America on turn 1 down is fine, though, as well. On turn 3 and 4, you had extra, I believe, I may have gotten the turns mixed up here, but you had extra energy and didn't play the Nebula in your hand, but could have for free.
Good point. Yep. Sometimes I get too much into planning the big card, and I don't pay attention to a small card.
Right. And it was, I think you drew it turn 3 and then like just didn't reconsider your plays after drawing your card for the turn. Turn 5, I think, was really good. Moving the Moonstone into Atlantis is definitely a way to potentially throw your opponent off there. I think that there were a lot of options turn 6 that, I don't know, there was just a lot of room. There was a lot of different opportunities that could have happened there on turn 6 that made it kind of interesting. I think that pulling the Moonstone into the location with Victoria hand was like fine, but you'd already done good to separate the Moonstone from their other ongoing cards, so it wound up being a little bit awkward there. Magneto and Sewer System, I think, probably played into some more things, but it worked out for you. It was very close though. So some of those small things certainly could have added up into a loss. If you had pulled the Captain America instead of the speed, do you lose that game? I think you do. Yeah, because speed is getting +3, but Captain America would be +4. So yeah, you would have maybe you would have tied, actually. I think you would have tied had you 50-50 coin flipped and pulled Captain America into Aunt May's rather than the speed.
Good point.
So, but then you would have won if you'd played the Nebula. So let's try one more here. And again, the plays are important, and I'm like going over the plays at the end of the game because they're potentially like relevant things to think about, but it's kind of throwing a lot at you all at once. So don't even, worry about winning. Try to win this game, and you can queue up right now, but focus more on those 2 or 3 things that I brought up. When should you snap? When should you retreat? And what is my opponent playing? And how quickly can I identify what I think the remaining cards are in my opponent's deck?
All right. So I won't forget Nebula this time. So it's
yeah, turn 1, it's easier to remember.
Yep. Right. Okay, so Craven seems to be a good card to put out, rather than trying to move with someone with move Misty with Spider-Man.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting, he didn't have any 2 cards. Okay. Okay, what do we get? He's going to get a Doom. High Evolutionary. Interesting. Okay. Misty's already used her. Okay, well, in that case, I'm going to try this. Let's see if I can get Misty symbioted. He's going to zap me with that if he has unspent energy, I believe. Which means I would like to move him. I don't have. Let's see, that's not necessarily a good play because I could be using this 4-cost card. I don't have any of the special powers, but it's a 4/6. All right, let's put High Evolutionary over here. Okay, and Wasp. Okay, so at least Misty's now no longer around, but I'm going to get zapped down by a lot of these. Seems like I don't really have a whole lot of options here. Let's put him over here. I could be, well, no, I can't move the shield because I don't have cap out. Okay, I think that's the best I could do given the options at the moment. Okay. Too late for Doom 2099. Let's see. I believe probably. See how many that affects 4 cards. Boy, I'm really tempted to throw him in the middle.
Every single card lights up on the board.
Yeah, boy, I'm going to have to do it again, even though I would like to try Dr. Doom, but that just is too tempting to see what we can pull out of him.
We are the future.
Oh, and he didn't
both
even...
your plays were looking pretty reasonable there. Let's see what they got. The Thing. And...
Not enough in some spot, which he doesn't have enough. Hey, here we go.
Great.
Now, of course,
Again, a pretty
zero
close game.
thought. Yep. Well, the other thing I should mention, because my brain is caught up in the actual gameplay, at no time did I think of snapping.
Right. Right.
It wasn't. It didn't pop up in my mind, which is obviously something I'm going to have to train myself to do.
Right. And so, yeah, definitely good. You, brought it up here at the end. And I think that could be a little bit like when you normally are playing Marvel Snap, you are not I want to say, like, doing commentary or doing play-by-play on all of your own plays. I mean, sometimes some people might be, right? If they're just sitting on the toilet and kind of thinking in their head. Typically, you're not thinking out loud, and I appreciate you vocalizing what you're thinking about for anyone watching this and for me to get an idea of what you're thinking about as well. But
yeah, I figured it was better rather than just playing silently too.
Of course. And never during those thoughts, right, did you think about when you were snapping, and did you think about what your opponent was playing? Now, me personally, I knew a decent amount of the cards in your opponent's deck on turn 1 of the game because they played a Misty Knight. And if you had clicked on that Misty Knight on turn 1, you would have seen that it had an extra ability because of High Evolutionary in their deck, which gives you some hints on what the other cards might be. Of course, High Evolutionary, also not necessarily like a top meta tier deck, but you can get an idea of at least partially some of the cards that might be in there and some of the things to play around. Might not have been like the best example for that, but certainly I just recognizing that like those are the key things that I want to work on, and it seems like that might even be an important sticking point for you just as far as your climb. Now, right now we are climbing. We're up 4 cubes on the play session, but I think the fundamentals of trying to understand what your opponents are doing and really just thinking about every turn, not only what is the play, but do I snap or do I retreat? Do I retreat? Typically pretty simple. It's no, unless your opponent snapped, then you have to think about it. But should I be snapping every single turn is definitely a consideration. To bring up this game again, there were some interesting things that I want to bring up just in terms of early game placement. The first one being the Nebula on turn 1. You played it into the first location. This is a little bit metagamey, especially at like higher levels and in conquest mode, because if people know you're playing Nebula, there's some interesting and different mind games and things going on, but oftentimes Nebula players will play into an unrevealed location on one of the first 2 turns, because say it's a bad location, say you wind up finding like a sewer system or even Clintar in the case of this game. You then, by playing Nebula in a bad location, encourage your opponent to then also have to play to a bad location. So that's always something that I would look for. I think that Nebula on the 3rd location generally winds up being a pretty good play. And then also we did have the Craven on turn 2, and there was no like real huge attempts. I mean, Craven into Clintar could be a little bit awkward, but putting the Craven into one of the locations where the shield isn't does allow you to potentially move the shield over. So that is one like additional small way to grab some value.
Yep. Excellent point.
I did like the pull with the card that is now your symbiote, Polaris, right? You pulled the Misty Knight into Clintar with Polaris. I thought that was a good play. This is a specific thing, but you mentioned that High Evolutionary was 6 power, which is good. It was the best like power to cost ratio that you could play on turn 4. Technically, Spider-Man could have been about the same power output, because if Spider-Man pulled Cyclops into Clintar and got rid of your opponent's Cyclops, then Spider-Man would have been basically a 2/7, if that math makes sense. Basically, by shutting off the Cyclops, Spider-Man was more power.
Yep.
And then similar but slightly different thing going on. Once your opponent has a Luke Cage out, Rocketing Groot no longer has an ability. So your opponent's cards can't have your cards can't have their power reduced, and Rocketing Groot in the way that it steals power, and Scream works slightly differently, I believe. But Rocket and Groot, if you want to click on that for us here too, over in White Palace.
Sorry.
No problem. So the way that it steals power, it just Luke Cage just totally turns this ability off. You can still move it once, but you'll no longer be able to steal power. You'll notice it's a 3/3 still, even though your opponent played a sunspot into it on the final turn. It didn't steal a power from the sunspot because Luke Cage just turns that ability off, which all that really means is that Spider-Man could have been more power than Rocket and Groot, just because Spider-Man would be a 2/4, though potentially a 2/6 if it 50-50 moves into the Kraven location. Actually, no, that would make it a 2/8 if you're able to move into the Kraven location. So, yeah, some interesting ways to think about that there. But I think not playing Spider-Man in two different possibilities may have been some power loss, just because there's Kraven synergies and because it was actually bigger than Rocket Groot. Of course, it's going to move around, so be a little bit less predictable. And it worked out, but again, working out and being so close with two locations that you won by 1 power, there's definitely ways where this game could have gone not in your favor too.
Well, that's, I think, also one of my challenges is that I will get a certain mindset and stick with it.
Right.
Over multiple games. And so, like, for example, with this deck, even though these two particular games did not bring out Doom 2099, I almost exclusively do good wins when Doom 2099 comes out, because it just, I know how to play it, and it's like, that's the one I want to do if it comes out early enough.
And it's almost a little bit like, I think Doom 2099, and if you want to, we can start queuing up for the next one. I think it's a very powerful card. It's almost a little bit of a handicap, I would say, just because it is so powerful and it does make a lot of the decisions for you. It says, okay, play this card on turn 4 if you have it, and then play your biggest card on each of the following turns. And it kind of removes some of the decision making that you have to make, because it makes up for it in just raw power, in just raw stats, right?
Right. And a raw boost to all the other Doom bots. So
yeah. All right, let's queue up here for game number 3. And let's see. I mean, we're close. We're getting there. 96. But yeah, let's focus on those same things again. When are we snapping? Do we retreat? And I would even say, so let's, before you press end turn each turn. So yeah, here, hit the play button, and then every turn before you hit end turn, tell me whether or not you would snap, whether or not you would retreat if your opponent snapped, and what other cards you think might be in your opponent's deck that they haven't played yet.
Okay. Interesting. Okay, well, in this case, I'm not going to snap, I'm not going to retreat, and I have no idea what he's got.
Okay, well, hold on. I think you should be snapping. I'm not saying you have to snap right now, but again...
Well, you think because of Scream being
You've got the Scream, you're playing a Scream deck, and even though you don't know every card that's in your opponent's deck, you already have a bunch of information. You know that they're not playing Thanos, you know that they're not playing Arishem, and you know that they're not playing Captain America Sam Wilson.
Yep.
So you have a few good ideas on what your opponent isn't playing. But yeah, why don't you play out this turn then, and then tell me if you've got any other ideas on what they could be playing.
Okay. No other plans at the moment other than to see what he plays next. I will snap now just to take the small psychological advantage that makes him think twice.
Okay, fair enough.
And I definitely am not going to... Oops, did I not?
It was fine. You were just talking through, but yeah, ran out of time a little bit there. So yeah, this is sort of an interesting position. Nico on the... Well, you know what? Yeah, I'll talk more after the game, but We'll see what we are up to here now.
Okay, I'm going to put cap there. I'm going to move the shield when I can. I would definitely not snap at this moment if I had not already snapped. Definitely would not retreat at this point. Still not 100% sure where he's going with the deck. I'm probably going to be fairly bad at assessing which decks people are playing.
Okay, yeah, fair enough. And to be fair, I got no clue what your opponent's up to right now. They might be a bot, which is also a fine reason to snap. But I don't know. I mean, they destroyed their rock with Subterranea, so that's a heads-up play. But I don't know what's going on other than that.
Okay, so let's see. I don't want him to have that SpongeBob there, so I think I'm going to pop this over here and see if I can make him not be happy about that. And at this point, I wouldn't, no, pity. I wouldn't snap at this turn if I had not already snapped. I definitely would not retreat right now.
Cool.
Interesting you played the rock. I don't understand that.
Gotta run,
Okay. Let's see, shuffles 4 rocks on deck. Okay. Interesting. And this is for turn 5. And of course, since I don't have the Doom bots, I have to start thinking more about playing multiple cards if I can, because that's normally something I would do, except that I don't have 2 cards that would equal 5. So would I get more value out of Arrow? Well, let's move you over here. Let's see if we can pull something interesting off of his side of Mojo World. Another rock. Okay. I wonder if he has a blue marble or something.
They might just not want to discard those rocks to Dracula.
Fair point. Fair point. Okay, put the shield back here. Interesting. So here I'm going to play the rock there because I have the higher number. And I'm going to throw him into the center just because I think that's got a good chance. I feel fairly comfortable with this one. I don't believe I would retreat under any circumstances right now.
Okay.
Oh wait, let's see. It's not doing what I thought it would do. Hold on. Because he's still got those. No. I'm gonna do this.
Okay. If you play your Sandman there, then maybe you don't have to retreat. Yeah. Otherwise, I think I would have retreated.
Fair enough.
Yeah, because you're going to lose Mojo World and you're going to lose Subterranea if you play Sandman Center. But you didn't, so you won 4 cubes. Good. There were definitely a few interesting things going on that game. The first one is, I believe you did snap on turn 2, right?
Yep.
That was actually 100% that game. I'm snapping on turn 1. And the reason for that is Mojo World is a really, really favorable location for your deck. With Polaris and Arrow and Magneto, as well as Spider-Man, there are just a ton of ways where, well, I'm just naming the cards that like you had, but there are just a ton of ways where this deck can win Mojo World. There's also the Doom bots and Doom 2099 that just allow you to get additional cards into that location and win it, while also battling for other locations. So that was just something that like I'd probably be identifying there pretty quickly, just like what locations are really good and really bad for you. Turn 2, I think probably in most instances, playing Sam Wilson on turn 2 is the right play. It's not like a hard and fast rule. There's going to be games where Scream is better, but unless you know you're like, I would say Scream is good on turn 2 if you know you're going to play a turn 3 Polaris, but if your plan is to not play a turn 3 Polaris, then playing Sam earlier so that way you can move the shield more is probably just going to be better. Speaking of, there was a similar thing to the Nebula play. On turn 4, you could have played the Rock alongside Polaris, and
Take the point.
yeah, that would have been potentially good. And I'm getting a little confused. I guess I don't think you moved anything with Polaris or with the Arrow, right? Yeah, no, because your Scream's still at 2 power. That was kind of interesting. So yeah, like Polaris you can use to win Mojo World on the final turn of the game, depending on what else gets drawn. And Arrow, similar. There were, because you didn't go for that, there were some like interesting things with how the Nebula played out. Your opponent got very close to winning in Mojo World, or even tying with one more Nebula activation, because you did get... Oh, here's what, actually, to back up. So I was definitely snapping on turn 1 of this game, because I see Mojo World, I see Scream. We've got the deck that, or the card that we built the deck around, and we have a location that's really favoring for us. So I think that a turn 1 Scream would have been good. However, turn 2, I would not have snapped, and I would have actually retreated to my opponent's snapping, potentially. Actually, I don't think so. I don't think I would have retreated, but Nico, they played with the draw 2 cards mode, which is the most powerful spell that Nico has, and that is, so yeah, after you play your next card, destroy it and draw 2 was the mode that they played it on here, that first one. And that can be a game-winning spell, and they had that on turn 1, which could imply that their deck is just going to draw all of their cards and do exactly what it needs to do. Turns out your opponent wound up drawing more rocks than you. They drew 3 rocks to your 1, and that kind of wound up being a pretty big setback for them. But that is scary. So the turn that you snapped is potentially a turn that I would have considered retreating to their snap. So it was just funny how that worked out. And I think that's mostly all I had to say on that one, but definitely better a little bit. I mean, you snapped, so you won 4 cubes, and that's just going to save you time, allow you to play more games, especially on like the pre-infinite climb. I feel like most games you want to be snapping. And there's some like psychology and stuff that plays into that. You brought up, oh, maybe we'll scare my opponent by snapping. I think that's a fine perspective to have, as long as you have like a reasonable curve and draw and stuff like that.
Yeah, well, I've noticed that that's one of the things I've seen time and time again, particularly that affects me, is when someone does a snap at a particular time, even if it's not necessarily the best gaming time, psychologically it's the best time because it puts some fear into your opponent.
Right.
Because you're thinking, what do they have in their hand, or what is their plan, or what are, and that snap suddenly makes the game more serious, as opposed to like playing poker with no money in the pot and all of a sudden someone drops $100 bill in the pot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I also just think like recognizing that, okay, you won 4 cubes this game, you save yourself time kind of by snapping. That's like a pretty relevant resource.
Yep.
Just because you only have so many hours in the game to play, and obviously like you're losing some of that by playing here with me, but hopefully we'll get you snapping more and earning more cubes if you want to queue up for the next one, and we'll try more or less the same thing. I think that these are interesting. Like, I'm able to provide some interesting feedback. I don't really like the type of coaching where people are like hand holding and I almost got into it a little bit in that game where I wanted to like tell you what to do on a specific turn and stuff. But I think it's much more beneficial for you to kind of think about what type of skills and what type of situations might come up. And I think playing it again like that last one, where just each turn tell me if you want to snap, if you want to retreat. And yeah, to clarify, it's like, if they were to snap this turn, would you retreat? So let's go into this one with that.
Okay.
I had like somewhat an idea of what this opponent was playing, but yeah, that was definitely the wackiest deck we'd seen yet. Let's see if we continue to get some.
Hey, well, Scream came by. Well, in that case, because Scream showed up, I'm going to snap right away.
Okay.
After to repeat their. Oh, that's a lovely location. I like that one a lot. Okay.
And this is also notably our first time seeing the shield.
Yes. Okay. Well, we're going to put you in this location. I think that's going to be a very appealing location for him to put stuff. So I'm going to start with my screens there. I would, if he snapped right now, I would not retreat at all. I don't know what he's doing outside of Captain America, and Ant-Man means he's playing lots of cards.
Right. I mean, do you have any decks that include the shield and Ant-Man?
I have never touched Ant-Man in my entire time
really?
playing Marvel Snap. Never touched him. Yeah, it's like I looked at him and I said, it doesn't really, fit in my mind. Wow, some odd little cards here. Okay, boy, I'm so tempted to put Megasonic into Valhalla because I would love to see her crush 2 cards into there. Oh man, that's so appealing. Okay, I'm gonna have to do this because if it kills off 2 cards in that's gonna be worth it.
Okay. I will correct you just a little bit. She doesn't have an on reveal ability. But when we're in Triskelion territory and you're playing with cards that you've never seen before, it can certainly be a little tricky. But I think that it's still a fine play, regardless, to play her.
Well, let me think. Is there another place? Yeah, you know what? Actually, let me change the location to the middle location because then it's once per game. That will potentially be more helpful. Okay, and I've got to keep an eye on the button going towards the end. There we go. All right.
Yeah, I mean, if you run out of time on the turn, it doesn't hurt you or anything. It just
Fair. Okay, so nope. We want to. Let's see. You're just in. Okay. Boy, okay. I'm gonna put her out. I'm gonna use Spider-Man to pull him out of the middle just because I like that premise. We'll see where it goes. And I would not retreat right now at all. I still have a very good feeling about this particular game.
Yeah, you're looking good. Oh, you even get the Spidey into Valhalla, so that'll trigger for you again end of turn. Shouldn't activate your screams again.
Right.
But still good.
But it did activate Spider-Man. Oh, no. That was odd. Okay. But still, Ant-Man is lower.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, now you're up by 12 power in Baxter Building. I feel like that's a fine place to be.
Yeah, with all the bouncing around, I should have put Craven out earlier. And since Triskelion, I feel like I want to put some more here. I would still, if I had not snapped, I would snap now, and I would not retreat yet. I still have a good feeling about this one.
Mm-hmm.
He's got Captain America, but he's not going to be able to add a shield. And he's only 4 points up in the middle. Right now, my gut instinct says I should drop the Doom because that will win me the middle and it's likely to win me one or the other, assuming that he doesn't try to balance everything out evenly. I would not retreat right now, and I might have snapped now, and it's not as firm as a decision as I've had. I suppose I could consider moving Rocket.
And before you hit end turn, just let me know.
Yep. Do I want to risk taking that over here since he's not pumped anything over? Okay, I'm going to move him over here just for the sake of, and if he adds some cards there. All right. I would not retreat right now.
All right. And I would say if you trust me here, I would say undo this play and just drop Magneto on the left.
Okay.
So if you click the energy, you can always just undo your play very quickly. But this also works. No, the energy. The 0.
Yeah, undual actions. Okay. So, and you say you put
Yeah, just
him
drop
here.
Magneto on the left there.
Okay. And he just snapped. Wow.
Yep.
Okay.
Because they're about to drop a Spectrum.
Ah.
Oh, no, that's not a Spectrum. That's a Blue Marvel. Well,
Okay,
either
you
way,
just decide that we didn't care. Yeah.
you're still going to get them because this will win Baxter Building and then the Triskelion.
Boy, those double screams really are nice.
Yeah, getting the second Scream off of Triskelion was definitely good. So they did not quite have Spectrum, but they still would have won this game by the way that if you had made the play that you had made. So you were playing to win Baxter Building by, I believe, 1 point. I believe it was currently 11 to 15 in Baxter Building, and then you were dropping 5 more power there to make it 16 to 15, which meant any little bit of pump in the center location would have put them over the edge. I was thinking Spectrum, but Blue Marvel plus an arrow works just as well. So you would have lost Baxter Building and the Triskelion and won Valhalla. Or maybe you would have been all right with the Doombots. No, I think you still would have lost because you moved the Rocketing Groot as well. So, yeah, definitely, I think the big thing there, and I brought up the Ant-Man. I thought that I had sent you a deck earlier this week that included Ant-Man and Sam Wilson.
That's very likely the case, and that I might have been frightened away when I saw that, and or I'd have to look at the deck again to analyze it.
Yeah.
But there's certain times with certain decks that I will pick up from various, people who recommend them and so on, and I'll build the deck and I'll get frightened of it at some point.
Sure.
Because I don't quite understand the strategy behind a particular card. And with Ant-Man, see, I sort of like Dazzler better, especially
I think the list I sent you played both.
That might be. I might put Ant-Man in my Ultron deck because I haven't done that, and that might warm me up to Ant-Man. Because the Ultron deck is shy of these current decks that I'm trying out, due to the recommendations that they will get you through up to an infinite. The Ultron deck is the deck I've been the most successful with, and if I recall correctly, that's how I got my other infinite win way back when with the Venom back. It was like Ultron just walked through people. And I knew the right way to play him. I knew the right moment to hit them, and I was also fairly cautious about what I laid down too soon, so that people weren't given the expectation that this was Ultron.
Right.
But okay, so I'll put some more thought into Ant-Man, and I should also experiment with more decks.
So I am just going to bump the Ant-Man list that I sent you, which is not really. I would not call this an Ant-Man deck. I would call this a ongoing deck is typically what I would call it, but I guess if you want to, it doesn't really matter that you are not super familiar with this deck, but being familiar with more decks, playing more types of decks is very interesting in Snap, because I think you mentioned earlier, it might have even been before I was recording, but you mentioned like switching decks a lot, and that can be both really bad and really good, because the benefit of, or I guess the downside, of course, first of switching decks is you're not going to learn the ins and outs of the deck that you are personally playing. And I think that that's advice that a lot of people talk about, but I think that advice that people don't talk about enough is actually that switching your own deck and just playing a variety of the different decks in Marvel Snap keys you in to what other people are trying to do. Like in that scenario, I recognize that you were falling into a slight trap there of just barely trying to win Baxter Building and putting yourself in a position where you could very easily lose to just a little bit of cross-lane power in the form of, I was thinking Spectrum, but Blue Marvel just the same, and that is in the list that I sent you as well. So yeah, definitely something to keep an eye on there a little bit. I think for the most part, you beat yourself a little bit up over not playing the Craven earlier on. I think that it was totally fine to not play the Craven because you didn't actually have time to play it. You could have not played the Negasonic, but the Negasonic was fun and efficiently used your energy. Turn 4, you had to play Scream plus Spider-Man. There was really no other option. Getting a second Scream from Triskelion was just absolutely insane. And yeah, you should win 8 cubes if you get not only your own Scream, but a second Scream auto-created there, auto-generated.
Very good.
You also did have an option instead of Craven plus Rocket and Groot on turn 5 to play Arrow, which I think could have also been quite good. Arrow your opponent around a little bit and then get 2 more Scream triggers is a lot of power. You wound up playing Craven plus Rocket and Groot, which worked out fine for the play that I came up with the Magneto. But if you weren't planning on playing the Magneto, then the Craven, Rocket, and Groot play was much, much less power than just playing a 14 power Arrow, or not even 14 power, 18 power Arrow, because 10 power on Arrow and then 4 power on each of the Screams.
Yep.
Cool.
Good.
All right, well, we snapped and got 8 cubes. That probably puts us up to like 98. Very close, 97.4.
Not bad at all. Compared to the 72 that I was at very recently.
Yeah,
dramatic improvement.
Climbing
Very
along,
cool.
I think we can play a little bit more and see how far we can get up to. What is your cutoff time in terms of how much time you can invest tonight?
Realistically, I could go for another 2.5 hours if we're pushing it.
Okay. All right. Well, you'll be infinite long before then if we play. All right. So
yeah,
cool.
I basically decided to clear out my night, so
Cool.
I have nothing else to do right now. And to be honest, once we're done, I will get in and see if I can make myself get up to 100 if I haven't already reached it. So.
Oh yeah. We'll get there. Especially like if. Again, like the live coaching thing, it's just like in my mind, I don't want to like walk you into a situation where I know you're going to lose cubes at the end of the game there. But yeah, let's play another one. And that was an interesting scenario because the opponent was snapping on the final turn there. And I think I even told you to change your play before the snap came in from the opponent. I don't remember the exact timeline of that though.
Well, we can watch the video later, which I will do. I mean, part of the issue right now is I'm trying to think about the game as well as helping you create some good content here. So sometimes my attention is split, which is rough. And I will. I'm not going to snap right now. If he snapped immediately, I would not retreat at all. Even though this is not necessarily a great starting hand. He's got a Red Hulk. Delightful.
Go ahead and click on their picture for me. Okay, yeah. I think you do retreat here.
Okay, all right. Let's see. I will be nice, and I will retreat. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, what from their profile suggested that I should retreat?
So you just don't have like that great of a game plan here. You got a bad card from Great Portal, and you've got 2 of your 6-cost cards. You got Spider-Man, which is like fine, but your opponent is playing Arishem, and they had like a reasonable curve and a reasonable game plan, and they're snapping, and I think it's just fine to respect that because we didn't have a great option.
Okay.
So if you click on their nameplate, they have 20 cards in their deck, or 19 cards currently in their deck. So are you familiar with Arishem?
I've played him a few times. I've not quite grasped what strategy I need to use with him. So
okay.
I know he's a powerful card, but
yeah,
I don't know how to play him.
Fair, yeah. I mean, he's just powerful, and a lot of times it's kind of like middle of the road, like good stuff. But I think the key thing here is that you just didn't have anything great going on. You didn't have your Scream, you didn't have your Doom 2099, and you also didn't have like that many different options or great stuff for your plays. Not that there was like that much that had even happened yet. I forget what the center location even was. Can you click hide results in the bottom left corner?
Okay.
What was the center location here? Oh yeah, Mount Vesuvius. Yeah. So the locations weren't anything crazy. You probably were just retreating this game on turn 5, but save you a cube to just retreat now. I think you'd probably not find anything super useful.
When does the cube count increase?
The cube count increases at the end of turn 6 or at the end of any turn where someone snaps, but because this game has Mount Vesuvius, if you didn't retreat on turn 5, you wouldn't be able to retreat on turn 6.
Right. Okay. Good. Okay.
Yeah, fair enough. We'll hop in the next one. So yeah, I was pretty sure your opponent was playing RSM. There's kind of like a weird thing because you didn't click on their profile ever to see if they were playing RSM, but they played a card with no like extra effects on it. Oh, that's kind of a bummer.
Yep. Well, okay. Since we remember to play her over on the right one,
definitely
we
not
will
playing
hope.
her into Oscorp Tower for sure.
But let's see if we can get a Captain America draw to be able to pull a shield
real
out in
nice
time.
right now.
Hey, Cap,
2
where are
draws
ya?
to do it.
Oh, okay. Wow. Apparently a third one.
We do have
And
Doom and Doom. I think they're just snapping potentially to the idea of taking your shield. You don't have a 2-cost card, so it is still a little bit awkward.
yeah, I wouldn't snap with this hand right now. It doesn't feel good. I'm just gonna move forward. I would not retreat yet either. Adam Warlock. Let me look at this one. I'm not as familiar with what Adam Warlock. After your turn, draw a card if you're winning here. Otherwise, 1 power. So that would be useful to.
Wait, hold on. Oh, sorry. I got ahead of myself a little bit, but there's yeah, I'm sorry. You can play.
Well, yeah, this seems too good to be having both of these gain the +1 power each time.
Yeah,
and I want to try and stop Adam from having the superior number of
for sure.
Of wins. Yeah, but we'll see where it goes. So you didn't play there. That's nice.
Okay, nice. Yeah,
Okay.
you're gonna win the Muir Island. Are they giving you an Electro? No, they're giving you a Spider Ham. All right, that seems totally fine.
Interesting. Okay. Interesting.
There was a big part of me that wanted you to play Polaris into Oscorp Tower just because it seemed fun, but it was probably the wrong play to do.
I really want to get Doom 2099 out because I haven't had him out. And I want him to be pumped up a little bit by the +1. Plus, it also keeps Adam down a bit. And now, of course, I'm limited to playing 1 card per turn, but he's been so kind as to give us a 7th turn. Interesting. Okay. I'm feeling much more comfortable about this. Wow. Okay. So. I don't know if. Boy. That's a lot of power to just throw away, even though the power is gone, but I'm not sure I want to drop that out. So we're going to put him here for the sake of that, and we're going to seal this off because I don't want a Doombot going in here, and if he adds any cards, that will pump them down. Plus, I'll be getting 4 extra points for this each turn. Would not retreat right now. Still feeling reasonably good. Oh wait, I played 2 cards, so I lost the Doombot. That was a bad choice. Okay. Well, let's see. I'm going to pop Magneto in here for the moment to pull everything towards the middle, or at least 2 cards towards the middle. Maybe that will mess up his Black Panther a little bit, or not. Oh, that's a nasty number. Okay. Those being hurt. Pulling you guys
We
here.
are the future.
Okay. There's no way I'm going to catch with 34. Interesting. So we've got I highly doubt he could do anything with 33. No. And I feel like moving Rocket and Groot to the middle so I could drop down Doom and get 3 more bots out there, or 3 more Dooms out there. That's going to be, I think, my gut instinct is telling me that's the best I'm going to get out of these. I'm going to lose the middle, but I don't. Well, that's a good question. Are we going to? Because you could pop a 10 in there, which is better than the 5 Doom. Or we could put Spider-Man in here, and that would pull whatever he's got out into the center where he doesn't need it.
You have priority right now, so you'd be pulling the Sam Wilson shield.
All right, that's what I'm going to do. I would not retreat right now. I didn't feel comfortable snapping through all of this. That just did not pop up in my mind, and I'm not sure where his deck is going.
Well, I kind of had an idea of where his deck was going, but you incidentally played around it quite well.
Interesting.
Because they're about to reveal an Arnim Zola.
Ah. Sure.
And now you gave them a 1 in 3 chance to hit their symbiote Spider-Man, which is quite good. This might have been a tough thing to recognize. This is just a little bit of game knowledge, but yeah, your opponent was playing a combo deck that they have both symbiote Spider-Man with Black Panther and Galactus probably. And then Adam Warlock is just in there really to be like drawing cards. But you played around the Arnim Zola very well, maybe unintentionally. But
yeah, I didn't see it coming. And I should, to be honest, I should, because once you see a card that gets into the 30s, like if someone takes a Venom and just like buffs up Venom, or gets Deadpool up to like 30 something, almost guaranteed you're going to see an Arnim Zola come out, and I just wasn't thinking of it. It just I've got to start thinking in those ways. What is the opponent likely to do? Because that gives me some better strategies to pursue.
There was another potential option there. Like they could have used Taskmaster, though I think they took themselves off of that by playing their cards in the wrong order. But Taskmaster copies the power of your most recently played card, so they could have used that to get 34 power in one of the side locations. That could have been bad. Worked out fine for you. There were 2 times where you played multiple cards, so you weren't getting a Doom bot, and definitely undersold the value of Doom 2099 by a considerable amount. One other thing to think about when you are playing Doom 2099 is how many cards you have in a given location. Like you were battling for Muir Island to get early power there, and it worked out reasonably well, but imagine on turn 4 you played the Doom 2099 into Muir Island, and then you got a Doom bot to the right, and then that location had 4 cards in it. You would then be like in a much worse position to play your Dr. Doom towards the final stages of the game. So that could have been awkward for you.
Good point.
So that's always something to think about with Doom 2099. I didn't really take as good of notes that game, so I don't really have too much else to say, but yeah, just kind of a weird like Arnim Zola combo. That's, if you recognize the deck, you do. If you don't, then like, it's almost interesting. Like if you had lost to this and lost 8 cubes, then maybe something like that like sticks out in your mind more, because then you kind of remember it. But now you might be inclined to not recognize the next symbiote Spider-Man Black Panther deck that you see because it wasn't a big deal and it all worked out this time. So kind of funny, but sure, it all worked out. So
Well, and I think this conversation is going to help me remember this, just because seeing anyone pump a single card up to over 30 is a giveaway for Armanzola. That's a tell when someone's betting bad in poker.
Right.
They just did their tell. And I should have spotted that, but right now I'm not quite focused on looking at their plays as much as I'm focused on my plays.
Yeah, and if you remember from the beginning, that's what I've been saying is like, let's not even care. I don't really even care what you're doing. Doom 2099 is almost a great card for you to play, because then you can just like not even care about what you're Doom 2099. Let him focus on your plays. I want you to focus on what is going on the other side of the table from you, because that is really how you manage your decisions about whether or not you're going to snap and retreat, is like figuring out what they're doing. But cool. Let's cue it up again.
I think the other thing that I need to also realize is I have to value cubes more than I currently do, because when I'm in a game and I lose 8 cubes, instead of thinking, oh wow, that's a lot of cubes, instead, I think, all right, I just have to play 4 games of winning 2 each. Mm-hmm. And in my mind, doing the grind is easier than risking a retreat when I could have potentially won. And that's the psychology that's like toying around in the back of my mind. I'm not saying that's a good thing. I'm just saying I think that's how I'm analyzing the way I approach it.
Right. I look at it as like right now you're 2 games away from hitting infinite.
Whereas I see 8 games away.
Exactly. And it's also just, I think one thing that's also cool with this process is just to think about what you need to think about. And if you approach the games with more intentionality, if that's a fair word to use there, not only are you like getting more out of the time that you spend in the game, but hopefully it's also more fun. Like if just playing a bunch of games for 1 cube and just having this be a game that you play while you're watching TV or whatever else you're doing in your life, that's totally fine. And I don't mean to detract from anybody that plays like that, and sometimes I play like that. Sometimes I'm just like, oh sure, I'm going to the bathroom, I'm going to load up Marvel Snap for a quick 1-minute game, and I'm going to give somebody a cube here randomly, because like that's all I'm loading up the game to do. I'm not going it. But on the flip side of that, if because I think this is kind of the goal, if thinking more about your plays and just playing with more of that intentionality can make the game also more fun for you, then that's where I'm kind of trying to get to, where the fact that this isn't just a pick up and play mobile game, this is actually a strategy game with thousands of years of strategy behind it, just because of the bluffing and retreating and all of that stuff really does add a lot of strategic depth.
Yep.
It's weird to call Marvel Snap a 1,000-year-old game, or however old poker is. I'm imagining poker's thousands of years old.
I'm sure. And I mean, let's be fair. Every game designer grew up loving games. I don't believe that there's such a thing as a game designer that's not grown up loving games, and that means every game that they've played and or mastered, they've picked certain elements out of those various games and said,
especially the Marvel Snap team, because I've talked with a number of them as like being an official Marvel Snap creator, and they're here because they've got a huge passion for games, and I think that really comes through in Marvel Snap personally.
Oh yeah. Now, one other question while we're on a side discussion here. After I get to Infinite, I've heard that Conquest is the thing to do after that. Is that the thing to proceed to afterwards? And what should I expect from Conquest if that's the thing I go to after this?
So, yeah, I mean, I would say yes and no. There's a little bit more rewards to be had from the Conquest mode if you, I mean, me personally, it's something that I like just make sure I'm getting the value out of, because you can get like a few mystery variants and cards and stuff like that. Sometimes like some credits or things. I mean, but I would also say like you don't have to. Now, notably this season, there is going to be a new game mode that drops next week called Sanctum Showdown. So that is possibly where you'll find yourself spending some of your time next week, and then the first week of next season, it's going to run for 2 weeks total. And it's going to have a plethora of different rewards that you can find from it. But I would also say, like, the place to go, if you want to ask about, like, rewards, that's one question. If you want to ask about, like, fulfillment, that's a question that only you can answer. And then the part of that is, like, what are you going to find fun? And that's really your answer. But Conquest is, I think, in some aspects, it really depends. But Conquest can be easier than ranked play. Sometimes Conquest is actually easy mode. It's a little bit more random in who you get paired up with, because basically anybody that plays, so there's if you've never touched Conquest before, there's bronze, silver, gold, and infinite tiers in Conquest, but there is a little bit of extra things that go on behind the scenes when you are playing on when you're doing ladder play. You're being matched against people with a similar rating to you and a similar collection level. In Conquest mode, you just get paired up with someone that paid the same entry to play the same type of ticket, which means you could enter into Infinite Conquest and play someone on like a fresh account, and it's just going to be unfortunately a super easy game. But it could also be harder. You could also get paired against people with higher collection levels and higher rating than you, and not have a fun time.
Good. Well, I figure I got to find something to do, because this is the first time and the last time I finished Infinite, it was towards the end of the season. So it was like, all right, I made it through it. But now I'm going to have time. So
I think that the post-Infinite ranked play is actually really fun and fulfilling, because you don't have to play against bots anymore, which means every game you play is up against a real opponent. I think that we've had all real opponents tonight, except for maybe Avery in game 1. But other than that, and maybe the player playing Dracula with Strongman, I'm not sure if that was a real opponent either. But yeah, I like that you get to play like high level gameplay, because that's exciting to me. Like, win or lose, if you're playing up against better players, you're actually like learning more. And I will say this specifically too. So there was a while where and if you want to hit the play, I'll talk a little bit here, but I got into, like, at the end of each season doing Conquest mode after I'd already hit Infinite. And so then the next season would start up, and I had not played ranked in like 2 weeks. So then at the beginning of each season, I was very rusty because I just wasn't used to what was going on. And that actually made it a little bit more difficult to get back into the swing of things, if that makes sense.
Yep, that does make sense.
So in a similar way, just like continuing to play ranked against some of the best players can make you even better going into the next season, and just keep up your snap foo in that way.
Good. All right, so we get a lovely screen coming up. We're going to see where Captain America is going to go. Okay, enter in 60 cards this location. That does not necessarily help us, so I think I'm going to move you here. I would not snap at this moment, because the hands, there are too many high number cards here, and I would not retreat right now. Okay. And with X23, my guess is a Venom deck. I'm shooting in the dark, but it feels like it might be a Venom deck.
Can you click their profile for me?
Yep.
Okay.
If I lose, do not take credit. And they're playing. I have a Magneto icon. Interesting. Okay. Since it looks like they're going to be playing more into X23, because I think they're going to try to destroy her, I'm going to put him there and put my shield over here and see what happens. They play nothing. Okay, that's interesting. All right. Well, we're going to put the shield in the middle for the moment since I don't have anything else there, and we're going to put Polaris over here on the chance he plays a Carnage or Venom there, or is it Deathlock?
Yep.
Because they will destroy that and a Tuma. I was not expecting that.
Yeah. It's still a card that Destroyed X can play from time to time.
Interesting. Okay. Boy. Boy, oh boy. So now, boy. Don't want to do that. All right, I'm going to put Arrow here. Move the shield. I can. Okay, technical question. Can I move Rocket and Groot after turn 4 to Clayton?
Yep. Yeah, you can move it.
Okay.
You can move it at any point.
All right, I'm still not going to snap right now. I'm not feeling overly confident. But let's see what happens here.
Interesting. Ah. Okay.
Not particularly happy about that. Okay, so I don't have. Let's see. Yeah, I can do something with that. Okay, Doombot's too late. Craven, I don't see helping right now. Sandman couldn't stop him from playing Armanzola. Doom would. I'm really tempted to put Magneto here because on the chance that Atuma destroys or stops, but he's only got 5 points. I'm going to go with the Doom in this case. I will snap at this point.
Okay.
And I would not retreat. And there's another thing that's good about this is talking my way through this. It's encouraging me to take longer turns because in playing, by myself, I normally just go through things much faster, going with my gut instinct.
Yeah.
Yep.
One thing that I actually think is just like a reasonable thing to encourage in general is for anyone watching this and if you're interested in doing like a specific coaching session with me, I'm open to doing this with more people. I will say, and this is something that I've recommended basically since I've been creating content on YouTube and found that it helps me to just talk through my plays, record my games, and post myself on YouTube. I'm not saying everyone else needs to make a YouTube channel, but anyone can record themselves playing and talk while they are playing and then watch it back later. And I think that just that process of being willing to do that for yourself is a really incredible first step, just because it gets your brain working in different ways to try to do that, to actually, and it might seem silly to be like in your bedroom just talking to yourself as you're playing the game, but I do think it's actually like surprisingly helpful and is a tip that I always give people if they're looking to improve basically at anything across the board.
One of the classic things that great masters advise is if you truly want to master something, teach it to other people.
Yeah,
because
that's true.
You will learn more, and in this case, you're telling someone to basically teach themselves.
Yeah, I think that,
that's
and
my case.
The reason I say that too is because like not everybody is going to have the time or the resources to be able to set up coaching sessions or different things like that, and you have yourself as an option. So just be your own teacher. That's a great way to put it. And I think that, so one thing I will say, I personally don't love the game chess, because at the end of a game of chess, it's very difficult. I mean, you could have taken notes and you could play on an online website or something that actually takes, and there's probably a lot better resources now that you can, after the game, the computer will analyze and tell you which moves were bad and which moves were good. So all of that stuff aside, when I was a little kid and I would play chess, there would not really be an easy way for me after the game to see like, oh, what went right in that game and what went wrong, other than like obviously some big moments, some blunders, some discoveries, some interesting things like that. But those things aside, just because it's like an over-the-board game, I found it very difficult to try to improve just with my own self teaching myself. And there's thousands of millions of resources and books and things like that where if you want to learn externally, it's fine. But I think that something like this is actually a lot easier because when you lose, you can go back and you could see with only 6 turns in the game, okay, what things could I have done differently this game? And maybe that's not super fair to chess. I'm a bigger fan of games with a little bit more RNG in them. But if we want to break down this game real quick, so turn 1. First locations revealed. There was no plays to be made, and your opponent hasn't made any plays yet, so you don't know what they're playing. But we see the Kiln, which says you can't play cards there, and I know there was a little bit of confusion, but now you can see your Doombot is in Kiln, right? Mm-hmm. And similar to Mojo World a few games ago, you have Polaris, Magneto, and Arrow. Well, yeah, no, all of those cards can move your opponent's cards out of the Kiln, and then you had Rocketing Groot and Doom to move cards in there. So, first things first, I would recognize in this game on turn 1, and this isn't exactly any of the things we talked about. We were more talking about what is your opponent was playing, which was great. We got some good notes there on thinking it was a Venom deck, and you wound up being right. They definitely were a Venom deck in the end. Slightly different composition than typical like Deadpool Destroy decks that we wind up seeing. But you were right, it was a Destroy deck, and noticing that is very good because it did play into some of the ways that you played. Your Polaris and your Rocketing Groot felt a lot more intentional than they have in some previous games, so I really liked that.
I think this is also, I was going to say, this is a key factor. I used to play a lot of Destroy decks.
Yes.
So it was much easier for me to spot right away. It's like, all right, I know what he's doing.
Yep.
His deck is designed for that.
Yeah.
And I know how to destroy those decks, you know.
I think that's a benefit to something we were talking about earlier. I also think it's a slight potential downside to just play like a typical Destroy deck, but our opponent wasn't really doing typical stuff. They were doing some other weird stuff. So yeah, I just wanted to note that on turn 1, recognizing that Kiln was a really good location for your deck, I think is an important thing to pick up on in terms of should you be snapping on turn 1. I don't think you necessarily had to snap on turn 1, but it was obvious to me that you could easily win Kiln this game. And if you can easily win one of the 3 locations, then you're more than halfway to winning the whole game. So that can be a very powerful thing. Turn 2, you played Sam Wilson into the 3rd unrevealed location. And that was a very, very good play. Do you know why that was a very, very good play?
I do not.
Okay. So, specifically New York.
The thing that drove me on that was I listened to my gut instinct, intuition, whatever you want to call it, and said, it feels like it's the right place.
Yeah. So Kiln, I think, with the logic that I already broke down, Kiln is a location that you're probably going to win this game regardless. Now, the Nexus winds up being a huge game changer in a moment, but Kiln is a location that you're probably going to win regardless. And so now you just have to worry about winning one other location, and New York pops up as location number 2. There is a really powerful interaction in this deck with, it doesn't really come up that often, to be honest, but if you move Sam Wilson and his shield at the same time, then you will
Triggers?
wind up buffing Sam Wilson.
That's great.
So the way that the math works out is turn 3 you move the shield onto the Sam Wilson location, turn 4 you move it away, turn 5 you move the shield back to Sam Wilson, and then turn 6 you get to move them both into New York together, and you wind up getting a 9 power Sam Wilson.
Great.
So
That's very good.
playing Sam Wilson into not New York, specifically not New York, and then also not the location where your shield already is, means that you get a free +2 power in a game where the Nexus is not the final location. The Nexus did wind up being the final location here. Turn 3, you had 2 options. You wound up discussing both of them because you brought up the Polaris thing on turn 4. But yeah, you also could have played Polaris on the X-23 on the 3rd turn. Wound up all working out for you via Rocketing Groot and then everything else. The only other thing I wanted to bring up with this game, have you heard of the term Boomer Snap?
No.
Okay, so Boomer Snap is a friendly jab to make fun of basically Boomer Snap refers to people that snap on turn 6.
Okay.
And it's because I think, and it's sort of like an old school way of just like, it's very like cut and dry at that point. You've got a much better read on whether or not you're going to win the game by turn 6, and so a lot of inexperienced players, that's when they wind up snapping, because then you have the most information to make your decision, and people sometimes play the game as if the snap does not exist until the final turn of the game, and then on turn 6 you either snap or you retreat and your opponent does the same, right? And the problem with the Boomer Snap and why snapping earlier winds up being so much better is your opponent will also have less information. And oftentimes a turn 6 snap will result in the lowest possible cube output, even lower than if you had never snapped at all. Because when you snap on turn 6, your opponent has more information and can then just retreat, and only retreat for 1 cube, whereas if you didn't snap, they might stay in it and you might win 2 cubes.
Good. That's really good.
Yeah, so you did Boomer Snap on that game. I'm not sure when I would have snapped earlier, if I would have at all. I potentially would have snapped on turn 1, just seeing Kiln, because it's a location that you won. However, after turn 3, when the Nexus comes up, I get a little bit more afraid of some things that my opponent could potentially be doing. There were potentially some interesting scenarios where you could use like an arrow to move them out of the Nexus on the final turn in some weird ways. And I did also want to bring up that with the Nexus specifically, I think Dr. Doom's a bit of a trap. So Dr. Doom added 10 power to Kiln, 10 power to New York, and 5 power to the Nexus. And the reason I'm saying 10, 10, 5 is because that 5 in the Nexus also went to the other 3 locations, or the other 2 locations.
Valid point.
But a Magneto into the Nexus would have just resulted in 12 power at all 3 locations, more than Dr. Doom. So
Good
little
idea.
little bit of power lost there, and your opponent had a pretty nice combo, but big thing was just it wound up being really huge disruption that you pulled their card with arrow, and then it didn't get to destroy their Nimrod once for free. So yeah, it worked out for you. And now we are what? We are 10 cubes away from hitting infinite. So 5 games.
Yeah, of course, yeah. Wow. Very good.
Yeah, you can.
I'm
Sure.
I'm going to have to watch this whole video over again just to pick up all the details.
Yeah, and I think I was initially thinking that I might edit it, but I think that we've got some good discussion here, and it's going to be a longer video than is really worth it to edit for me. So I think I'm just going to upload this as one 2-hour video, and people will just get out of it what they get out of it, and yeah, it'll just be interesting in that way. All right, we got the Scream. We got a card that costs 1, 2, 3,
Yep.
and 4, so we're snapping.
Yep.
This is also a perfect example of when not to play Nebula into the left location, because at the very least you know now that Nebula is going to get +2 power on it on turn 5, where your opponent has to play to Avengers Compound.
Good. Okay. Green would not benefit dramatically from this.
Not the worst, though, either.
Well, he's going to want to play cards here, so that's okay. I'll stick with that.
I heard you say this earlier, but Scream does not care where the cards move to. That's only Kingpin and Kraven. Scream just
Right,
cares
yep.
that your opponent's cards move at all.
Interesting. Okay, so the Collector. I only have Polaris to play.
Mm-hmm.
Collector can buff up, so I don't want to put him in the middle. I think, on the other hand, taking him out of that left hand, or putting him over into left hand from the right hand one, I think is going to be beneficial.
Yep. This also allows you to not have 3 cards center, which could potentially impact Doom and Doom bots later on.
Oh, Attica. Oh, good grief, I have to. If I could snap again, I would.
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty good.
Boy, what a lucky break on that.
Now, your opponent is also playing a crazy combo deck, and they are going to get a huge benefit out of this Sinister London too, so it's not cut and dry here.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. Oh, so we've got...
I think this can work out reasonably well for you.
Let's see. Turn 5, I have no choice but to play here. I don't want to play 2 cards, so Arrow makes the most sense. I don't think it matters what he grabs. Certainly don't want to retreat right now. And then on the top rope. Okay.
I am reborn.
He hasn't put out a Dracula. He's going to take out one of the
that's
cards.
good. That's good. Good for you, because you were running out of room.
Well, Doom makes room when he needs it. You know? Wow. I mean, I don't see another option other than to play Magneto, because that's just going to give him a world of pain, and I don't see him winning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Your opponent could definitely win this game.
Really? What?
Yeah, so both of those Dakins are going to jump up to 16 power.
Because he's putting out the sword?
Because they get to discard the Muramasa shards with
Right.
with Bullseye here, but I think they're just playing Apocalypse into Sinister London, which I don't think is going to be enough for the throne room. Oh wow, they missed, but I think they still win this. Yeah.
Oh, there's the 8 loss. Okay. Fair enough.
Yeah, I was pretty sure they were going to be able to take that one. This is a little bit tough again if you recognize what your opponent is doing, which is playing this discard combo shenanigans. Yeah, they basically had all the cards that their deck really cares about. And yeah, they were just able to put out way too big of numbers. I was trying to think if there was any way around that, but I don't really think that there was, because yeah, that Apocalypse would have won Throne Room for them as well if it landed center. So
See, this is the key factor. I never play Dakin at all.
Yeah.
I should actually start creating decks with cards that I never play just to get more familiar with them.
Dakin is kind of, I believe you don't own. You sent me your collection earlier this week. I don't remember if you don't own Bullseye or if you don't own some of the other cards for this deck, but I think Dakin is really only good with Bullseye.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Good.
Tough one. Yeah, if you just don't recognize exactly what's going on there, it can be a little bit tough. But I will say, on the final turn, so you did see their Apocalypse because they discarded it to Blade.
Yes.
And so you can kind of just know that they're going to play Apocalypse into Sinister London. Without doing the Dakin math, it might have been tough to realize that you'd actually lost Sinister London, though. And then you would have lost wherever location the Apocalypse popped up at. But it's all good.
Indeed. Anything that you learn along the way makes it a win. So.
Yeah, I didn't really have any other notes. I just kind of was talking out that game as it was happening there. So we can hop into the next one.
I was going to say, if by chance you have a moment to look at my collection again and give me like the top 3 cards that I'm missing that I should look for or acquire, or something like that.
Yeah, I think that one good way to look at the game too, and what I always say, especially because I played as a free-to-play player for the first 2 years of the game, right now you have a 12-card deck list that you can play. And to play Marvel Snap, all you ever need is 12 cards. And potentially the best card that you can spend your resources on, if you keep watching KM Best videos or you watch my content or whatever else, and you see another deck that you own 11 of the 12 cards in, then the 12th card in that deck is going to be the best card that you can pick up for your collection. And that's kind of like a non-answer in a way, but it's also just because of the way that the collection system works in this game. Like Red Guardian is probably the best card that you don't own, but if you never really want to play a deck with Red Guardian, then it's not something that you need, and there could be another deck that you find in the future. And honestly, chances are the 12th card that you're going to be missing in a deck in the future is going to wind up being Red Guardian, just because it can slot into so many different decks. But yeah, I just think that that's like a better way to look at it. And then there's also like some cards are build around cards, whereas some cards are like Red Guardian can be the 12th card in any deck. You could play Red Guardian in the deck you're currently playing. But there's other cards like Scream, for instance, or Red Wing you'd brought up because that's currently available in Spotlight Caches. If you want to play a Red Wing deck, you need to have Red Wing. There's no way to play a Red Wing deck without Red Wing. Whereas you could play a deck that plays Red Guardian without Red Guardian.
Right. Yep. Well, see, I guess what I'm trying to do is semi-future-proof my deck building, success. Like right now, I have one deck set up that's missing 2 cards that I don't own. One is Pixie, and the other is Gore, I think is the name.
Okay.
And that deck looked interesting to me, so I was like, "Oh, I want to try this," and I put it together. Then realized I was missing those 2 cards.
Yeah.
So those are now on my radar. That if they
you
turn up,
you could play that deck without Gore. You can't play that deck without Pixie. The other, like, Gore in that deck could be Red Hulk, or it could be Emperor Hulkling. It could be any generic big 6-cost card. It could be Magneto, even. Magneto is going to be the best card in that deck in some metagames. The trick with that style of, or that thought process of collection building, is that Gore and Red Guardian are much better cards than Pixie, because Pixie only goes in the Pixie decks. Red Wing only goes in the Red Wing decks. So there's another side to that coin where, like, you might not really want to pick up Pixie, because if it turns out you don't like it, then you just spent a bunch of resources on just that card.
Sure.
And it's really tough to know, like, whether or not you're gonna like something. I think one other indicator, like, in addition to just like seeing a card in one KM video, is do you see that card in KM's video the next week on top decks to play? And
Yep.
if you start to see a card multiple times, then yeah, maybe it can move higher up on your list.
Yep. Good idea.
Cool. Hop into another one.
All right.
So we're still up on cubes for sure.
Oh yeah. Hey, compared to the 72 that I was at just recently, come on, dude. Well, I like that. Since we only have one option, yeah, this is definitely a snap. And we know that he's got Captain America, and that's, as far as I can tell, all we know. I would not retreat right now with Scream there and with Spider-Man there. It feels really good right now, and I like Kamar Taj a lot.
Interesting.
Interesting indeed. Oh, and he likes it. I rarely see people use the smileys on.
I know. I got to get to character mastery 30 so I can get my unlocked emotes on some cooler cards.
Okay. I would not retreat at this point at all. I don't know where he's going with Ant-Man, since I don't know Ant-Man that well, other than I know he's going to at least put 3 other cards here.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's a safe assumption that they're going to be playing a pretty similar deck to the previous Ant-Man player that we saw, which is ongoing. And Spectrum into Kamartaj could be pretty big later on in this game.
I'm going to play Rocket and Groot just because I want to hit his other 2 cards as they come in.
Yep.
It still feels good.
Yeah, looks good. We do play off this time. Oh, with a Baron Zemo.
You got my Captain America.
It's going to steal your Sam Wilson and something else. Polaris, okay.
Wow. Wants to fill up, he doesn't want me to use it. Okay. Interesting. Well, I don't want to necessarily do that. I can't move the shield. I'm going to try and pull someone out of here with the hopes that that will hinder his success there, and I'll get 2 cards as opposed to him. We shall see. And I still don't feel like retreating at all. This is not looking strong, but we'll see what I pull soon. And that's me calling out to Doom, because I really like to have that effect happen twice.
Ah, I see.
Interesting. Let's see, kind of trade your shield between the locations. Turn 5.
Friendly neighborhood
I don't know where you're gonna
Spider-Man
go.
here.
Alright, that's where I wanted you to go. Okay. And I got my 2 cards. Delightful. Alright. Oh, and there's Doom. Thank you for showing up, my friend. Okay, let's see. I could play Sandman here. I like the high points, and I like the fact that it's going to make him not be able to play multiple lower cost cards. So that feels good to me. I don't feel like moving Groot. I don't feel like retreating. I think this is feeling solid, especially if I put Doom here and fill up the entire board.
What do they have into Kamartaj this turn? Oh, it's a...
Knowledge
Oh, it's a
is
Spectrum
power.
off Psylocke.
All
Okay,
systems
that
go.
makes more sense. Great.
Still not feeling bad. And let's see how Doom does for us. Order of extra bouts coming up.
Yeah.
Doom bouts.
If you want to undo this for a second here.
Yep. Oop. Yep. Undo. Too late, I think. Yep,
Yeah.
Too late. Sorry.
You always lose
Hey.
this game.
Really? Okay.
Yes.
I am Iron Man.
Doom rules all.
Ah. Okay. See, this is a case of me going with my gut instinct as opposed to calculating things out.
Yeah. It was actually a little bit closer even than I thought, but
Still lost. Yeah.
yeah, you were only like a point up on the center location, so they could very easily win Asgard if they just played for Asgard this turn. And you'd already lost Kamartaj, and there was no way for you to win it. So, interestingly, you kept bringing up Kamartaj early on in the game, and I was pretty confused because I was even trying to think of like what in your deck is good in Kamartaj, and Doctor Doom is good for sure. Though I will say Spectrum from your opponent's deck is much more beneficial. So, and Baron Zemo, that was not a card that was on my list, but Spectrum is basically the card that this deck is built around to just play a bunch of ongoing cards, including Sam Wilson and the Shield, and then get just a ton of value out of Spectrum. So they were, I think, much better set up to use that Kamartaj. And so it probably, I think I would have retreated on any turn that my opponent was snapping on that game, just because Kamartaj is a location that, like, I guess here's the lesson there is that, like, some locations are going to be good for you or like fine for you or like exciting to see potentially, but also huge high roll locations for your opponents. And they just had many more ways to take advantage of Kamartaj than you did. Even really only one more potentially in Spectrum, and they were also potentially playing Doctor Dooms. But I don't think that it was like that great for you is the big thing. It's a big, splashy, and fun location, but that doesn't always just mean, oh, it shows up and
It's not a guaranteed win. Yeah.
Yeah. That was mostly all I had. There was a little bit of a lost opportunity with Spider-Man and Kraven potentially, but it worked out in terms of how you battled for Asgard there. Mostly it just, the game went really terribly the second they dropped their Baron Zemo and had a pair of Sam Wilsons and could then just get a lot of value out of that shield.
Yep. Agreed.
Well, that's fine. We've dropped a few more cubes now. Still positive.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, one other thing, I think maybe actually just barely positive though, but one other thing, and I may have brought this up, I think in like an initial response to you, is that there are, so you just lost in the last two games 8 cubes and 4 cubes, and that's not necessarily a that's not necessarily
put the game down and walk away from it.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say, and I'll just repeat myself here, but that's not necessarily an indicator though that you need to switch decks or anything, because some players, and you'd expressed that earlier, will get into the mindset that like, oh, I'm losing right now, that means this deck is bad, I need to, but actually I would say it's the opposite. Like, this is a time to like double down on your current deck, but really examine, because both of these last two games, sure, you probably weren't winning these games, but you could have retreated, and both were scenarios where I personally was able to recognize that those were positions where you lost going into the final turn. And so a little bit of that is just like game knowledge, which I can't really fault you for. That's just like getting the reps in. But recognizing that, this could be a time, if we weren't like here together and had set this up, this would be a time that I'd maybe otherwise advise just taking a break and saying like, okay, you're losing because you are not maybe considering all of your opponent's options. So maybe you're just not in the headspace right now to be doing that, and coming back into it with a fresh mind another time, because we're 2 hours into a play session here. That's a lot more than people typically play Marvel Snap for. It's a game that takes 2 minutes to play, not 2 hours typically. So maybe it's too much, but if you are good to keep it going, I'm still good to hang in here with you.
Yep, I'm fine with it. And like I said, I planned tonight around this, so.
Yep, for sure. But I will say, like, even though you carve out the time in your schedule, it could even just be good to take a 5-minute break or something. You know, like that can also be. And you know what? Actually, let's do that. I'm gonna go grab some water, and if you want to use the bathroom, grab some water or anything, and just take a short little break here, collect ourselves.
Great idea. Yeah, I have to say that's one of the driving factors for this for me is collecting the different card backs, collecting the card variants.
Sure.
I haven't gotten to the mastery stuff as much yet, but ouch. After each turn, the cards lose 1 power. I don't like you at all. We do have Captain America. Not comfortable snapping right now. Don't feel like retreating since we've got Groot there. Return card fight. Ooh, but this can't be destroyed, so
Right.
that's good.
Yep.
You're going here. I'm not going to snap yet because it doesn't feel good yet. But let's see. Hawkeye. I have no idea what Hawkeye is going to bring. But he's got to play something there, so Groot makes a lot of sense to put there because that will hurt whatever's coming in, and we get Captain America buffed up a bit. I'm still not feeling comfortable snapping. Taking a look here. Oh, well, bigger Hawkeye fan than me, that's true. Okay. Got... Oh, Rogue.
Did you get into the
all.
game because you were... Oh, that worked out fine, though. Did you get into the game because you were into Marvel or games or...
Yes and yes. I'm very much into Marvel Comics, and I like card games, and I've been a lifelong gamer my entire life. At one point, I ended up working for a game publishing company. I started off as a QA tester, and then eventually I worked my way up into being a lead.
I don't want to distract you here. Hold on. Can you undo?
Yep. Yes, I can. Except it's too late.
No. You got to hit the button in the bottom right corner. Undo and turn in the bottom.
Sorry. I'm sorry.
It's all good.
I completely
They played a rock.
That's
If you had played a rock center there, it would have saved your shield from getting destroyed, but they wound up playing a rock there, so they did it for you.
Interesting. Okay. All right. I'm going to say Sandman because that gives us some good power here. And it's going to make them hard to play multiple cards. We're already doing okay here. I'm currently thinking Magneto over here because losing 1 power on the last turn is not going to hurt. And if it pulls with stuff over there, that's fine. Mm-hmm. Now I feel like snapping. I may be a boomer snap at that point, but I readily accept that title for the moment.
Yep. It's not quite a boomer snap. Turn 5 gets you in before the boomer snap criteria. Okay. But yeah, it's borderline.
Fair enough. I'm a recovering boomer snapper. Interesting. Okay. Good. All right. Let's take a look and see what Magneto is going to do here. Only pulls 2 cards. But there's also low value cards. Oops. Doom does not do a lot here. No guarantee on what she would pull, and it's unlikely.
All right, I'm going to risk it, and that feels good. I do not feel like I need to retreat. Okay. And that pulls those over. They're all going to get 3. They're going to get -1.
Yep. Yeah, it worked out.
Yep. Yeah, the middle column did not feel like it was worth fighting for.
Yeah, I mean, it was actually quite winnable because they were going to lose a card, which means they lose some value on their Pim era there too, and then their Dazzler. So, interesting game. Some notes here. The Warrior Falls popped up as the second location. That is a location that you can, and Jotunheim, both are locations where you can get value a little bit from your big move cards, Arrow and Magneto. Wound up getting value with Magneto out of Jotunheim, but you could also have like used Arrow to move something into Jotunheim or Warrior Falls, and there are some interesting ways where you can gain value from that. So could have been good. Turn 4, there was like a very specific thing that came up. I tried to bring it up to you, and basically just once they took your ability away from the shield, it could get destroyed. It actually did wind up getting destroyed in Warrior Falls because you forgot to move it on turn 5. But yeah, the rocks are these rocks in these games have been interesting because the rocks have had some value in almost all of these games. So don't forget to not write off the rocks. At the very least, playing a rock will shrink an opposing Ronin in like no other, with no other relevance. You can play your rock and shrink your opponent's Ronin, which could be relevant. And I know we saw that card pop up earlier. Turn 5, I think you wanted to play, so we'd have to rewind back a little bit, but your opponent had priority on turn 5, meaning their card, is that right? Now I'm kind of forgetting. So let's see, you had 1 power in Warrior Falls. I remember thinking, actually, I don't remember who had priority, but either way, something to look out for in this deck is on turn 5, it felt like your opponent was they were full up in Warrior Falls, if you can rewind back and remember that. They had played a few cards there. Actually, they wound up playing, I'm sorry, I'm getting a little bit lost on exactly what happened on turn 5, but what I'm getting to is your opponent had a few cards in Subterranea, and if you had played Arrow in Subterranea, one other thing that Arrow does, or I'd say potentially like its primary use when it is not being used to buff Screams and Cravens, is it's used to lock your opponent out of a given location. So you could have played Arrow to the right and won that. Now you wound up winning the right location, but you could have played Arrow in a way that then your opponent would have had the Subterranea location full and unable to play any more cards there. With a pretty high likelihood, just on like because the other locations both had drawbacks, your opponent was probably pretty likely to do that. So I think looking for potential games where that can happen can definitely be beneficial. The Magneto in the Jotunheim was obviously quite good because it winds up being like a 14 power Magneto there, or I guess it winds up being a 13 power because you dragged in 2 cards and shrunk them. So yeah, all kind of worked out. Your opponent really just didn't play anything super impressive. Part of that was the Sandman wound up working out, so it was all good. Though I think one thing to consider, like you'd brought up that, and I'm kind of having a little bit of trouble remembering exactly what your opponent played on each individual turn, but you realized on the final turn of the game that you couldn't win in Warrior Falls. And maybe you didn't realize that on turn 5 when you played the Sandman, but it probably would have been better to just play the Sandman elsewhere rather than battling for all 3 locations.
Yep, that's a valid point. I think in my mind I saw, short of a miracle play coming out of his hand, which I did not foresee happening. I think at that point I said, this should work, and I don't need to count on Sandman, therefore I'm throwing Sandman in the middle out of no good reason. And I agree, if I had put him in Subterranea, that would have covered me in case he had some, Hulk or something, or vice versa, putting over on Jordanheim on the chance he was going to put a big heavy card there. That would have been the smarter move. Yep.
I mean, in fairness though, your opponent totally could have won this game. If they just played a Spectrum, even just looking at the board right now, a Spectrum into Subterranea, it might not, it doesn't, they wouldn't have the Blue Marvel in that case because they played the Blue Marvel on the final turn, I believe here, but still, I think that was like a reasonable card to expect out of them. You would have then maybe gotten them back with the Magneto, but the game would have been very close. It would have actually come down to differential, which you maybe could have lost. You wouldn't wound up of doing that, but actually no, maybe with a few more points in Spectrum. Let me count that out. Yeah, I think you probably lose this one to Spectrum if they played that on the final turn instead. 1, 2, 3, 4 more points there. You're currently winning this one by 3. Oh yeah, Spectrum would have beat you. No, never mind. It wouldn't have. You still would have won, but
It's moot point since he didn't either have it or it didn't come up into his hand.
yeah.
Yeah,
but not exactly. I mean, there's like recognizing what you could have still lost to is still relevant.
Okay.
Because it means that those like tiny advantages, like you threw away the 8 points from Sandman, so like it put you into a position where you potentially, like if your opponent snapped on the final turn, then they're telling you maybe that they have the Spectrum, and then at that point you have to retreat in a position where you otherwise would have just won the game.
Yep.
And then there's like some other levels where of like, okay, what if they snapped and they don't have Spectrum, but they're like bluffing the Spectrum? Or what if they don't snap, but you recognize that they could have Spectrum, so you just respect that it's a card that they're definitely playing in their deck, and just didn't wind up drawing.
Yep.
So yeah, let's hop into another one and see just if we can think a little bit more about those, like what they could be playing. I think we're doing good just by like snapping more.
Yep.
And there's something that I've talked about a lot on my channel too, but if you snap in positions where you're like 50-50 to win the game, that's always good for you because your opponent might retreat, and 50% of the time you're going to win that game anyways. So if you think about like cube equity, okay, a turn 1 snap from your opponent, that's interesting. You could retreat here if you wanted to. A turn 1 snap, you don't have that much information to go on, but again, you've got kind of a clunky hand, so you don't really have that good of cards to curve out with. So I could certainly see retreating.
Okay. It will retreat for the cost of 1.
Yep.
Escape.
Well, it gave me a fist bump. There you go. At least as a good sportsman.
Nice.
All right. Okay.
I don't know why they snapped, but I think just your hand not that great, so getting out of there is fine. Oh,
This
here we have
just
some
in.
information.
Interesting.
Okay. So, any ideas on what they might be playing?
Well, with Arrow, it's probably a mover deck. I don't know if that's the right term, but I call it mover,
Sure.
where it's likely that they're going to be putting stuff back and forth, and if it's a Scream deck, it's possible.
Do
Other
you
than
think
that,
they're
I don't
playing
know.
the exact same deck that you're playing?
Possibly. Exact, I don't know, but we'll find out. Now, this is interesting. Bar Sinister, I have no idea what we would put in there with this deck. I don't think I've ever played this deck with this particular land coming up. I played it with obviously other decks, but
Sure.
That's making me think. Okay, I'm going to have to put out Captain America. I don't want to put him here. I don't want to give 4 Captain Americas in the center, so I think we only have that option. I'm going to snap here because it feels, with Spider-Man and Groot, I feel good, and we might potentially have 2 arrows.
Okay. Oh, they are playing possibly a Scream into... Nope, they're playing a bunch of Spider-Mans. So here's a little tip. You can see how Spider-Man will work in Bar Sinister if you decide to play Spider-Man there.
Now, what is the advantage? Oh, of course, because they're all going out of it, so he's just...
The advantage
he's filling
is you
up
get
his-
5 copies of Spider-Man. You get 20 power for 2 energy.
Okay, that's fair. But that also, ties up a lot of your spaces.
It does. It does. Your opponent can now play 4 more cards this game, though, still. They can play 1 card into Bar Sinister, and then a few more cards elsewhere.
See, I'm worried about putting something here because then it might take up one of the spots in here.
Yeah, it's not the worst thing, though.
But let's see what happens with Groot, because Groot feels like a good one to go on. All right, let's see what happens.
Sure.
Don't feel like a retreat is needed right now.
They're playing their second card. There's going to be a red guardian on the shield.
Of course, I can move him out now.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, I could put Doom there and just fill up everything with Doom. That's a complicated subject area. Gonna put you here. For a moment, we're gonna move you away. Boy, I really want to play Doom Bob. Or Doom 2099 into the center, because boy, then I just get... All right, against my better judgment, or thinking this through, I just feel like I want to play this, and I realize it's going to screw up the shield, going back to Captain America, but just the concept of having all of the Doom bots maxed out.
Sure.
I'm willing. This is one of those ones where I'm willing to play it just to see how it goes, as opposed to, am I going to win? Let's see what happens.
I don't think this is that bad for you.
Well,
There's something else you'll have to keep in mind, though, is that you only get to play 1 more card this game.
Mm-hmm.
But you have won the Daily Bugle.
Mm-hmm. And there you go.
And all right, they're just going to retreat. Worked out.
Wow. I'm surprised. And he's a sportsman. There we go.
So, turn 1, I asked you, do you think that they are playing, or what deck do you think that they're playing? And then specifically even, do you think that they're playing the same deck as you? It's a little bit of a trick question, because Arrow really indicates that they're playing the same deck. It indicates, you could call it move. I call them just Scream decks because that's the key card. So Arrow really indicates Scream. There are a few other decks that play Arrow. Notably, it's a 10 power card for Surtur, if you're familiar with that card.
I'm not super familiar with it, but I know he's apparently one of the best cards. out there right now.
Right. And you have to play 10 power cards to activate Surtur, so Arrow fits that requirement.
Sure.
But notably, your opponent did not have the shield. So at the very least, you know that they're not playing Sam Wilson. They could be playing the same deck just without Sam Wilson. That's reasonable. Turn 2, Bar Sinister showed up. So there were a few... Actually, there's a few cards in your deck that work pretty interestingly with Bar Sinister. We saw your opponent use Spider-Man. Rocketing Groot can be a really interesting card in that location because you can also then get a flexible amount of value out of future plays into Bar Sinister. Like instead of making 4 Doom bots, you could have made 2 Doom bots by moving out 2 of the Rocketing Groots and then playing into Bar Sinister.
Yep.
Now at that point, you're probably out of space to play anything else still, right? Even with only making 2 Doom 2099s. And then Dr. Doom on the final turn of the game. You could literally just play nothing and then play Doom on the final turn, and you've got 20 power in every location except for wherever your shield is. So that's kind of an interesting option as well that you could have played for. But I think the main thing was just like, and we kind of walked away from it. But so on turn 1, what was your opponent playing? Not really sure. We know they've got Arrow in their deck. We know they don't have Sam Wilson. Turn 2, your opponent plays Spider-Man. And at that point, what I want to hear is, oh, they are definitely playing a Scream deck. Because now we've recognized that they have 2 of the same cards that are in our deck, and recognizing what else they have really, really then lets you know what you have to play around. And it was a very similar deck, so recognizing that is really important.
Yep.
Cool.
Very good.
I will be right back if you want to start up the next one. I'm just going to grab my computer glasses real quick.
Sure.
Little less strain on the eyes there.
Wait. I was going to say if it was a Scream, I'll do a double snap. Okay. Well, I think we are going to snap, and that feels good.
Yeah. This is an interesting scenario with Sakaar. You've got 2 pretty big hits with Doom and Magneto. Your opponent could also hit pretty nicely. They're probably not going to hit as big of things as you do, though. There we go. Magneto is pretty good value for 0 energy.
Yep. And Squirrel Girl is sadly not a lot for him.
Yeah, yeah.
And I don't know if I want to fill my hand up with Sentinels, but on the other hand, we have a fairly empty hand at the moment.
Yeah, that's true. You actually
okay.
don't have a play for next turn, so getting a Sentinel is fine. Can't move it just yet.
Yep. That was me not paying attention to the shield. and talking about the game at the same time.
Of course.
Okay. All right. What do we got here? 10 power monster. All right.
And
Okay.
importantly, what else? What could your opponent be playing?
Yes. Nova, I'm guessing he needs to destroy that to get the benefits, so I'm guessing a destroy deck. Hood, yeah, because then if he destroys the Hood and Squirrel, yeah, I'm guessing Carnage/Venom is my prediction.
Okay.
Which means that if I can pull stuff away from him, that will be beneficial. I'm going to put him over here just because I think that balances this out. And let's go forward.
Yeah, it's slightly different. It's going to be a Killmonger. Might not be this turn.
Okay. And then a null at the end?
Death.
Is that the way they pronounce it? Death, okay.
Death is the card that they're going for. Though,
Sure.
wow, they got another Nova off of that. That's pretty interesting. And a free X23. Okay, well, they need to play... Oh, wait. Okay. Well...
He can't play now.
Yeah, they can no longer play this game.
Oh, there you go.
So there you go. Yeah. That was pretty silly how that worked out. Very lucky turn of events for you, but...
Indeed. Huh. Good.
Cool. And good thing you snapped, because if you did not snap, there was no way you could have snapped from that point.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, huge benefit to snapping on turn 1 already. And we are now 15 cubes away from hitting infinite. Not the closest we've been yet, but pretty close.
But I'm not back down to 72, which I consider
Right.
to be a strong advantage.
15 cubes, another way to say that is 2 games away.
Yep.
All right. And do you have any indication on what your opponent is playing?
Well, given the icon of Carnage, I'm guessing a Destroy deck. He already snapped. I got a snap just because this looks a phenomenal starting hand.
Yeah. Does look good. You could not snap back just to their turn 1 snap, but I like the bravado here. Interestingly, I cannot tell you what your opponent is playing right now, but I believe I might just be recognizing the same avatar. I believe we fought this opponent a few games ago.
Okay. All right, I'm going to...
Sure, that's fine.
Okay. I like having her buffed and moved. The other option was put Captain America there and then have him move right away, but this just feels right. So.
Yeah, and I brought this up earlier. Getting Scream out as soon as possible in an Aunt May's game allows you to sap the power from whatever they play, so it worked out for you there.
Mm-hmm. I believe that I'm going to start playing.
Yep.
Well, let's see. Yeah, it's going to throw him off. If it's the type of deck I'm expecting, this is going to hurt him.
Yeah, looks like they're just a destroy deck, and they probably snapped thinking that they'd have a 5-power X23, and now they've got a 1-power X23. So maybe they've got a 2-power. No, yeah, 2-power X23, but you dodge letting them kill it.
Yep. Interesting. Okay. We've got 4. Let's see if that's not good. That's not good. Oh, I want to get Captain out. So I'm going to put him here. I don't feel like a retreat is even worthy of consideration at this time. Killmonger, okay, of course.
That was turn 4.
So now the question becomes, oh yeah, we've got only Killmonger is affected. Let's try that. Okay. Was that a Venom coming out?
They've got 6 energy, so it could be Wolverine. Okay. Hulkbuster plus Venom.
Yep.
Cool.
Interesting. So we got those 2. We put Magneto here. That pulls both of them over. That would. Whoops. Well, I guess not.
Yeah,
I'll take it.
That's a good retreat from them there. So let's talk through what you would have done this last turn then.
Well, my first thought, I have to do the calculations. Unlike going purely with my gut instinct, I was thinking about putting Magneto into Titan with the idea that it would pull these over. So if that gives us 11, 12, 13, 14, I'd be basically clearing out these 2 and winning this one most likely.
Sure.
That would have been my strategy after I added those numbers up, because it looked too appealing to pull Venom over here where he's not going to get any benefits. Killmonger doesn't do anything moving over here. That means the 14 here is fairly safe.
Mm-hmm.
And if he puts something over here, that's only one land versus the other two that I win.
Right.
It felt like it would work.
Yeah. So let's work backwards. Let's talk about this turn here first off. The Magneto play, I think playing it in either of the, I think really you actually can't go wrong. Playing Magneto in any location is quite good and will probably win you the game. You could even play Magneto into Hala, which battles for that location and moves only the Killmonger, but then you shrink the Killmonger. You shrink the Killmonger down to -1, at which point you beat them there 10-12. However, if you were going to play the Magneto in one of the other two locations, what I also wanted to hear you say is you should move the shield into Hala to win that location 1-0.
Oh yes, you're right. You're 100% right, and I did not see that.
Yeah, so don't forget that the shield is still 1 power when you're moving a bunch of stuff around, can definitely win you the game. One other thing that could be a strong consideration as far as Magnetoing not into Hala, there's like a chance they're looking to play an Arnim Zola here on the final turn. It wouldn't be a good play, which is why they had to retreat. So it's probably not even worth really playing around or discussing too much further. You just had the Scream. You had the Scream on turn 2. You even got value out of their X-23, so all of that was really good. You played the Scream on turn 2, and then it worked. Turn 5, I think that, playing the Arrow where you did was really good, because Scream is just going to win the location that it's at already, unless your opponent invests significant resources there. So arrowing into another location, I think was just really good for you. And a good turn 5. Turn 4, I did want to talk about a little bit though. You on turn 4 played Sam Wilson. And Sam Wilson, while a fine card, gave you 5 points of power on the board, right? By the end of the game.
Yep.
Polaris is actually, with Scream in play, Polaris represents a 3/9, which is a really, really powerful rate. And to just consider that that was probably the best use of your resources on that 4th turn of the game. I call it a 3/9 because it's 5 power itself, and then Scream steals 2 power, so it's a total of 9 power.
And it disrupts his positions. Yep.
Disrupts his positions again, and it could even wind up being a 11 power play, because if they are destroying their X-23 and using that to grow Null, then you are shrinking a future Null by shrinking X-23 further. So, I think Polaris was a little bit of a miss, but I definitely loved Scream into Spider-Man moving their X-23 a few times. All of that was super good.
Good.
Great, and you got 4 cubes for it, so we are basically back to where we were a few games ago, where we are now 11 cubes away from hitting infinite. Not to put the pressure on, but still,
Indeed.
maybe 3 games away, 3 games at 4 cubes a pop is possible.
Guess it is.
All right, let's see if it happens. See, this is also part of the fear creeping in now. It's like, I'm so close.
Of course, yeah.
Okay, what do we got here? Cards have -3 power. Well, I think that means Nebula should go all the way over here no matter what. I got Scream, I've got Cap, I've got the Doombot. That's a snap.
Sure, and...
No.
Okay, we already pressed end turn, that's fine.
Yeah.
Why do you think Nebula should not get played in the negative zone? And if you want to hit that undo button, it could be good.
Oops.
Okay,
Well, I'm
that's
sorry.
fine.
Say that again.
Nebula's
say,
locked
yeah,
in.
say the. All right, but say the question again.
So why do you think Nebula would be bad into the negative zone?
She starts off with -2,
Sure.
and then has to build up. Whereas here, she's already got the 1, and it draws their attention, and they're less likely to play here, which I guess gives Nebula the
Right.
advantage of
So
building up.
where, if we have a game with negative zone, now Jotunheim, and one unknown location, and let's actually play out your turn first here, so I don't distract you too much if you want to play one of your
All right.
cards.
I guess I should do here, although I'm not going to be able to save that. So, all right.
Okay. So, and we can see,
Oh,
where
it's
is
me.
your opponent playing all of their cards this game?
Right now, they're a ninja, -2 ninja. Wow. I don't know.
It might be,
I'm a-
we'll go back after the game. I don't mean to distract you. So,
Okay.
just finish doing what you're doing here.
Boy. Okay. I guess we're gonna move him there, so we can get the shield out of there before it becomes too much of a negative. And they've got a Polaris. Of course they do. You call the ninja over. Great. That's a pretty hefty ninja. Okay. I feel like doing the Doom bot at the moment because he's not got. It looks like he's going to try and draw me down in numbers as opposed to put out big numbers himself. Doombot gives me some freedom, and I can. All right, then we should move the shield out of there. Okay, let's see what happens. Yeah, that hurts. On the other hand, I can ignore this if I need to. Doombot there, which is okay. Let's see. He just played Craven. All right. I feel like I want to do this because if he's going to have to start going to one location, I suspect he's going to go to this one first. On the other hand, I like the premise of going over here and pulling one of these, hopefully Scream over to there. I don't know that I want to move the shield
Craven.
out. Is it the lowest number card? Or
It
lowest
is their
power
most
card?
recently played card.
Okay. Let's see what happens here. No, shield has become a hindrance now. Ouch. Well, took out the ninja. Okay. Interesting. Okay, he's doing well here.
So not moves to the death, right?
All right, I'm going to retreat on this one. I
Yep.
realize I'm losing, 3?
Yep.
But that's better than losing more. Okay.
Yeah, no real way around that at that point. But I think your issues on that game started on the first turn, and we'll have to rewind a little bit to remember exactly what happened. But the negative zone popped up as location number 1, and that was actually a few, an hour or so ago when I brought up playing Nebula into the rightmost location. The reason that I said that was good is because the rightmost location could be negative zone, because negative zone is and on turn 3. So let's just remove all of the cards from the field right now, and let's just look at negative zone, Jotunheim, Shadowland. Where do you want to play your cards? Which location will not give you minus power to the cards?
Shadowland.
Shadowland, right. So where does your opponent want to play their cards?
They want to presumably play them in Shadowland.
Also Shadowland. So you want to play your Nebula in either of the other 2 locations. It doesn't feel great to play Nebula into Jotunheim, and it might not feel great to play it into negative zone. However, your opponent also doesn't want to play their cards there, so that's where Nebula is going to get the most value.
Yep. Yep.
So yeah,
And negative zone makes sense because she can actually climb out of that hole, as opposed
Right.
to Jotunheim. She's constantly being pushed back down.
yeah, you play Nebula in negative zone, and by the end of the game, she's activated 5 times. She is an 11 power card, getting -3, and she's 8 power in negative zone. That would have won you negative zone. I mean, your opponent did wind up playing Polaris there to move your ninja, but still, you could have had an 8 power Nebula or 6 power Nebula at that location to, at the very least, like tie it or potentially win it. What came next? Oh, turn 2. I probably would have played Sam Wilson to move the shield out of Jotunheim as soon as possible before I played the Scream for this deck. This game in particular, it was a little bit tough. Turn 2 or turn 3. In your hand, you had Rocketing Groot. You did have Doom 2099, which wound up being your play, but you also had both Sam Wilson, which wound up being your play for the turn, and you had Craven. And I look at that and I go, and this is kind of like a I guess this is sort of like a fundamental, just like mana curve thing. But oftentimes, if you've got a 3-cost card and you've got multiple 4-cost cards, the best thing to do is probably going to be spend all of your energy every turn. So playing your 3-cost card on turn 3 and then turn 4 playing 2 4-cost cards is usually better value.
2-cost cards, you mean?
Yeah, sorry, 2 2-cost cards.
Yep.
But you played Doom, and that wound up being fine. You did eventually play the Arrow. You almost played 2 cards on turn 5, and then the Doom would have been terrible. But also, like, the Doom didn't wind up being that great, and because you had so many cheap cards still in your hand. And so, like, this final turn, you did not have a great play, because you either played 1 card and got a Doombot, or you played 2 cards, didn't get a Doombot, and Doom, when he's only making 1 or 2 Doombots, he made 2 Doombots and Lady Deathstrike killed 1, but if you're only getting 2 Doombots out of it, it's not the best value.
Yep.
But we only lost 2 cubes, so still within a shot of getting to infinite within 2 games.
Indeed.
But I think also, and I've kind of been saying that a little bit in a little bit of a cheeky manner. Yeah, don't feel like we're gonna need to get it in 2 games. It's definitely still about the
experience.
Yeah, it's about the experience and about and I think that's what I'm kind of like, because you had brought up earlier being like, oh, and I'm kind of like trying to push back against what you had said earlier that if you're 13 cubes off of infinite right now, that is like 13 games or 7 games or something. But realistically, it could be. And yeah, more so, I think the important takeaway here is the fundamentals of just recognizing what's a good position, what's a bad position, right?
Yep.
Cool. You can hop into the next one.
Sorry, I was lost in a bit of a strategy thought.
Oh yeah, sure.
Right.
What do you got for me?
Well, I think the thing I have to wrap my mind around with snapping is it's as important as knowing the cards, or knowing when to play the cards, knowing the locations, knowing what's an advantage in the location, predicting what the opponent's deck is and how they're going to play it.
Right.
Snapping is just as important, and I think in the past I didn't treat it that way. I always thought of snapping as like okay, hold on here. Let me take a look here.
Nebula somewhere, not Wilkes-Barre.
Oh, yeah.
Great.
Okay. I think in the past I had the bad opinion that snapping was like being egotistical. You know, it's like, look, I'm good. You know, it's like I'm dropping the $10,000 pot on the last card in poker. It's like, I'm Mr. Tough Guy. And I never thought of it as being, well, it's actually a strategy. It's a very important part of the strategy in this game, which this is helping me, work on that. I don't know what I'm going to do with that.
Do you know anything about what your opponent is playing right now?
I have no sense of what they're playing.
Okey-dokey.
Unless it's Galactus. Nope, it's not Galactus. Okay, there we go. Oh wait, I didn't see what he played on the first turn. I think I was caught up in talking. Okay, so he's now going to produce tons of demons. Okay,
tons of demons. Yep.
I don't have. If I play, all right, I'm going to play him here just because I get this to move over and get that pumped up. He's got priority, but he also just took away his demon-producing machine.
Yep.
Interesting.
Yeah, good notes, good notes.
All right. Well, we're clearly going to use that to pump that up. I don't see an advantage of moving magic over to Crimson. So the feeling here is we put out the Doom, and we go from there.
Sure.
I'm going to snap on this because it feels good.
Looks good. Yeah, makes sense from them too. A few notes: you cannot play Polaris into Crimson Cosmos because Polaris costs 3, and Polaris also will not move magic. It will only move cards that cost 1 and 2.
Ah, yes. Okay. Yep.
They are playing.
And more than likely have those on the wall.
Okay.
Well, okay, so clearly the shield should go out so I can continue to make that a delightful experience. Boy, since he's playing low number cards, I'm going to pump those up. This feels like...
Can you click on Sandman for me? Yeah, no, never mind. I know what it does.
Next turn cards cost 1
Maximum
more. Maximum of 6.
Yeah.
So basically, that's good. If he's going to play a bunch of little cards, that helps, unless he's... I mean, a 10-pointer going across with Armin, I can't believe is going to be beneficial.
Yeah, they're doing bigger stuff than that this game. They're going to make a big null, potentially. Or not.
Cool. No, he's making a big Deadpool. Interesting. I'm not sure where he's going with all of this. Huh. Well, one possibility here, let's see, if I put him there, that gives us 18. Arrow could pull the last one, which would have been, was it Deadpool or X-23? No,
Not sure, it might have been the Hood.
Whereas moving any more than 2 cost card to that location, if that pulls, okay. So we're going to put him here, and I think that will potentially have some power. We shall see. Oh.
Power must be controlled.
Okay.
Interesting.
That'll work out well for you.
That's the board. Huh. Oh man, that's... You don't want to move him out. On the other hand, if you move this out, we could do this. Yeah, okay. That feels like that. I'm not going to retreat. This feels like we've got a good solid chance.
Yeah, it looks reasonable. Not even totally sure what they're doing right this second.
Interesting.
I definitely need to change my underwear.
If that's gone away now, you can't play it. There's not turn 8.
Yep. No, I'm not. Yeah, I don't know if it was a bot or what exactly their idea was.
Death did come out, but it wasn't. No, that's weird. Okay.
You can take it.
Well, let's see. Let's do this. I don't think bots are programmed to do fist bumps. Oh no. A newbie?
They might be. They might be programmed to do fist bumps now. They So some notes on that game.
Yep.
Turn 2. I wrote maybe I didn't take notes. I don't remember. I wrote down turn 2 snap. Maybe you snapped on turn 2.
Yes, I did.
Okay, you snapped on turn 2. Great. Turn 1, you had Luke's bar as a location, which is a location, and I think you did eventually recognize it's a location that's really good for you. Because you can control like movement related things, and you could get into that location easier than your opponent with rocketing Groot and Doombots, and you could pull your opponent out of that location.
Yep.
Second location was Crimson Cosmos. At that point, and again, I think you may have snapped on turn 2. Maybe you snapped on turn. I think you snapped on turn 3. I would have snapped on turn 2 when I saw Crimson Cosmos, because that your opponent had only really shown you Hood. It could mean that they're a destroy deck. It could mean that they're a bounce deck. Either one of those seems pretty reasonable to then you just grabbing a win in Crimson Cosmos, which you eventually did. Trying to remember exactly how you played your cards here. I don't think I have too many more notes. Your opponent wasn't really playing anything like super high powered. I think maybe a little bit of an issue with like recognizing what all of your cards do and like their purpose in the deck potentially. In like games where you don't have Scream is a little bit of an issue. But, and I think that that's something to consider too, is like, it's not a big deal. I think I'm getting a little tired too, but let's move on to the next one, and we can probably, before I get too tired here, finish the climb. We are now, I think, like 6 cubes away, but pretty close.
We're getting close, yep. So now I manifest a bot that makes bad decisions.
I mean, looks like it.
Oh boy. 5 energy, 6 total. Boy. I am going to have to put out these 2, and I'm going to snap immediately because this feels. I know we'll see what he brings out, but boy, to have these on turn 1.
Yeah, sounds good.
Amazing.
I could even see not playing Scream because you'll be able to play it next turn, or playing Nebula instead of Scream because Nebula gets more value the earlier it's out there, and next turn you're just going to wind up playing Nebula anyways, so playing it out a turn earlier could have been good.
Yep. Sure.
But if your opponent they're playing X-23, they possibly have Killmonger anyways, so Nebula might not be super relevant.
Right, that last, yeah. Your Doombot wants to fill up the middle section where I prefer he didn't.
I was even thinking, just playing Doom could be reasonable in case you don't draw a card to play on this turn, which you don't. So now you don't get to make a Doombot here, but
such a pity. You would think he'd make. I was going to say, you'd think he'd put out 2 Doombots in place. He's got all that time.
Yeah. Nope, he needs some inspiration or something. I don't know.
I don't see another option there. Absorbing Man, of course. That's interesting. I don't think I've ever seen Absorbing Man played after Gladiator.
It's an interesting move.
Well,
Doesn't really work.
I can't move my shield over. That did have a minor effect of value. At this point, I'm going to say arrow, because it starts to fill us up. So if he's putting something huge in here, this at least takes something and occupies one of the spaces.
Yep.
All right.
Not sure how great that is, but it's something.
Mm-hmm.
I could have also seen
it's 20 points.
Sandman into Bar Sinister makes all of his cards cost 2 more on the
Yep.
final turn.
That's a very good point.
But as long as you have space to play your Magneto, I think you're doing all right this game. Okay, Red Skull, that's kind of terrible, but sure. I think they will probably just wind up retreating here.
We'll find out.
I think it is a bot.
Okay, there you go. Now let's try out this theory again. Let's do a fist bump.
Yeah, let's see if this bot snaps back, or fist bumps back.
There you go. It's either, well, yeah.
Can you click
no.
on their profile?
Yep.
And then click profile, yeah. Huh. I mean, we could search up this alliance. Thor. Thuck it till it's Thor. We could see if they actually have a player named Riley in there. Here, you queue up for the next one. I will see if there is a player named Riley in that alliance.
Cool.
Actually, I might not be able to do that if I'm in an alliance, right? But
I don't know.
I think the dev said they were making some changes to bots this season in terms of making them recognizable as bots, and I think the change that they made is bots can now fist bump you.
Why?
If I had to guess.
Why would they do that, though? I mean, I'm presuming that from a development perspective, they don't want bots playing the game, do they?
Oh, so bots are not like bots in Hearthstone or League of Legends or something. The bots that you see on the ladder are run by the devs.
Ah.
Yeah.
And is that for testing purposes or game balance purposes?
So it is, yeah, it's for game balance purposes. They are there to inject cubes into the system. So that way the game is not a like net zero cube production. It's so that way players can gain cubes over time. And yeah, kind of like artificially inflates everyone's cube rates.
Wow. Huh. I had no concept of that.
Yeah, it's kind of like a weird little hidden thing, and I actually kind of forgot that point that a lot of players hear and see and think about bots, and they just assume that like, oh, that means that bots are a bad thing.
Yeah.
But they're actually kind of an intentional weird thing by the devs here.
I feel this is pretty good. The shield is going to get pumped up. I'm going to snap.
Okay.
I'm feeling confident here. Yeah, well, other than working at THQ for 7.5 years, I also worked for 9 months at Riot Games.
Okay.
And I tested the store, so I wasn't actually doing gameplay testing. But boy, the conversations with the devs and the testers about bots was just, it was frightening. It was a huge issue.
Yeah.
That's okay. Boy, I want to put both of these out at once. Okay, we put Captain America out and see where this goes. Loki, interesting. Okay. Right. Wow. Okay, I've got to put this here so that I can get those both buffed up and hopefully get us our 2 cards next turn. See what comes from that. Interesting. Loki. I don't know what decks use Loki. Nice that Rogue doesn't get to steal anything. Let's move you back to get a point from that. No. Well, I want to get the 2 cards, and it feels better to do that. Interesting. He's put 2 over there, so he's given up the extra cards. Bizarre. Okay. Sort of surprised. What did my bounty bring? A nice Scream and a nice Nebula.
Can you click on America Chavez for me?
Yep. Give the top card of your deck plus 2 power.
Okay. I was curious if it was generated by Arishem or not.
Okay. All right. So we've got a total of 5. We have Sandman again. Okay. I really feel that it's going to be more important to put those there. Okay. Interesting. Didn't buy. Okay. So that could help you a whole lot there. I'm not going to win anything over here. That's only 8. We could move this over here just to get the 100. That. All right, I'm going to go with this because I think he's given up here. I don't think he's going to put anything that would win that. Even, okay, that's good. Yeah, I'm going to go for it.
All right.
We are the future.
Cool. Be happy to grab
Worked
it.
out.
Victory.
So here is what I want to talk about that game. So turn 2 they played Loki. At that point, and this is why it's sometimes good to check your opponent on turn 1 and see if they're playing Arishem. It's a little bit of an annoying thing to do every single game, but once they play Loki, you can no longer tell if your opponent is playing Arishem if you are playing on mobile here.
Right.
Because no matter what, they are going to have a Loki-sized deck. They are going to have all of your cards. It doesn't look like they were playing Arishem. I mean, click on their Rogue.
Sorry, say click on what?
Their Rogue on over in Muir Island there. No, okay, yeah. So they weren't playing Arishem. They were just playing Loki with hand generation. Maybe a little bit of an old deck. Could have even been a bot, to be honest, though. I don't know. They were playing Loki from... that was in Spotlight Caches. Actually, this Loki might be in Spotlight Caches right now, this Loki variant. So I feel like that kind of implies not a bot, but they could give bots any type of spotlights they want. So the... that's just like one small thing, and it's a little bit annoying. I don't check every game if my opponent is playing Arishem, but it's just something else to keep in mind. So turn 3, you played Craven, and I think that was a little bit of a mistake. You did wind up, so specifically when you move the shield, you will not, so like the way that the game orders, you moved the shield with Sam Wilson at the start of the turn, and then you flipped over the Craven. So you when you played the Craven, you were like, oh, let's play this here so that way it gets the bonus from the shield moving. It's just not how that works. So That's just a little bit about like deck knowledge and card knowledge. That's not how your cards interact. And to that point, because it doesn't work like that, then it just means that probably, so the 2+2s on Craven, one is from Polaris and one is from the second time you moved the shield on turn 5. Because Craven doesn't work like that, it wasn't the most important play that turn, and it was probably better to just efficiently spend your energy and play a 3-cost card on turn 3, so that way on turn 4, which this actually did wind up happening, you drew another 2-cost card on turn 4, you drew Scream, but then you could still only play 1 card that turn, because you either played the 3-cost Polaris or the 2-cost Scream. You couldn't play both. Whereas if you'd held the Craven, you could have. Turn 5, this got a little bit dicey at the end there. I think you could have better started to think about Mojo World, because you actually very, very easily could have lost this game. If your opponent, a little bit of a Mojo World sub-game here, which I described earlier as being like a very favorable location for your deck. Part of the reason that it's favorable for your deck, though, is because you can use Magneto to pull your opponent out of that location on the final turn. You used it to pull cards in there with Magneto on the final turn, which didn't wind up being relevant because your opponent filled the location up. But imagine your opponent played that Sam Wilson into Muir Island, and then you pulled in that 8-power rogue. You would have lost this game instead. So, a little scary to play the Magneto into Mojo World, but the most important thing about this game, aside of all of like the minute things with maybe like learning your own cards, it's actually kind of the same thing, because I think like one of the most important things that I've talked about is like recognizing what your opponent can play. So what was your opponent playing? What could they do on the final turn of the game? The answer is they had access to all of your cards because of Loki. And I would have liked to hear you like just vocalize a little bit, thinking, okay, well, what could they play knowing that they have all of my cards, right? So yeah, that's definitely an interesting thing to just keep in mind there. It's kind of Loki specific, but at the same time it isn't, because we've played some mirror matches before this, and those are going to have like some similar things of like, okay, what kind of things do I have to play around here? But you're now very, very close to hitting infinite, so we probably don't need to play around things for too much longer. What are you like? 2 cubes away now?
Let's find out.
I think one of my problems with Loki is I don't see him often enough, and I don't play him enough.
Oh no, you're in.
That I don't.
Great.
Oh wow! Well, there you go. Yeah. Very nice. Wow. Well, thank you.
No problem.
Not only for the inspiration, but for all of the information. This is literally a situation where I'm going to have to watch the video myself, even though I've just been through the experience. There's a lot to absorb from this, so I greatly appreciate your efforts and time.
And I think like also, if nothing else, there was maybe 1 or 2 times where I gave you like a little bit of in-game guidance, but for the most part, I was pretty hands-off, and even watched as I knew you were about to lose 8 cubes once or twice. I think one was 8 cubes, one was 4 cubes in there. But I bring that up to say, like, and if you want to go, you can claim your card back to finish this video off here. You did that like largely just on your own, and that's a pretty motivating thing, I think, for you and for anybody else watching. You got it in you, and congrats.
Thank you. Truly appreciate it, because again, the card backs are the motivation for this, but I also know it's going to encourage me to play better, because it's going up to infinite is not a trivial experience.
and so it will make me a better player overall. And now this is pretty much going to be my goal every season, or however, I guess it's every season. I'm going to go for infinite every single time now, as opposed to before. It's like if the card back wasn't of interest, I'd completely blow off getting to infinite.
And
So,
this is kind of like a weird thing, but so one of the reasons, and this is something that I more felt like when I very first got into the game, and like infinite, I felt like was a really difficult hurdle to climb every season. And I would similarly be like, okay, well, how much time do I want to invest into this game? Because I was playing other games and stuff. How much time do I want to invest into Marvel Snap this month? And how much do I care about like the collectible? But if you hit infinite, then it makes it easier to get infinite next season, because this next season you're going to start at level 73. And so this season you probably started somewhere in the 60s, and it just meant it's like a little bit more of a climb. But if you continue to get infinite, then it'll be easier to climb up there next season. And you'll also notice you just kind of unlocked like a new game mode. When you are at the current rank that you're at, in the top like 40,000 players, I think, I'm not positive on this, but I think that players don't really retreat at the end of the game anymore. They just play it out because you can't really lose cubes, so everybody's really just playing for fun and playing to complete their daily missions and stuff, or they are playing in the other game modes.
sure,
But
that makes sense.
I am happy that I could help. Like I said, I think this is all just going to be one like 2-hour or 3-hour video. I think basically 2.5 to 3 hours is how long we've played for. So hopefully some other people watching this can also get something. If only you watch it again though, and have some interesting feedback for yourself, and can kind of like go back. I was basically writing notes as the games went on, but then I gave them after the game, so it might be interesting to like hear those notes. Like if you want to rewatch this, listen, and maybe I'll throw this part at the beginning too. Listen to the notes that I give at the end of the game, and then watch the game with those notes like fresh in your mind, so you can see exactly what's going on there.
Yep. And of course, the other thing that will be an advantage with the video is I can pause it and think about things as as much as I like, or as in depth as I'd like.
Right. And
really,
I think that's like a big thing that I'm hoping, and maybe I'll throw this in the intro too. I did talk about this earlier on in the video, but for other people to not get caught up on, like, okay, just to put it this way, I mean, a little bit like Wayne Gretzky quote here, but it is so much better to just play and make the mistakes rather than not like mistakes. I think are great, especially in a situation like this. If you had just come and like played Doom 2099 every game and just like, I mean, you did win almost all of your games, but if you win all of your games and never make mistakes, then like, what am I here for too, so and
well, any path to mastery has to have mistakes in it, because otherwise you will never improve, and
right.
if you never improve, you never get to be a master.
Right.
It's part of the journey.
And the other thing though too that I was getting at is like, you are putting yourself, this is actually what I meant to say, is that you are putting yourself out there, and with that there are, I think, like there's like extra things going on with you trying to think out your plays, and that can actually, like, it's like being in a tournament, I guess. You can sometimes play a whole lot worse in a tournament. I know I do sometimes, just because all of the nerves come up and just make playing everything so much harder. So it didn't really seem like that was really getting to you. It seemed like you were able to stay pretty level-headed and stuff, but definitely some things to improve on if if, and I brought this up earlier too, if you think it's fun to do so. And it seems like, and with our conversations, it seems like that is where you're kind of, and I kind of am just saying this to be like, if anybody's watching, and I'm sure nobody's watching 3 hours in and still feeling like, hey, like this isn't fun. The people that are watching this are people that are finding this fun, but just bring it up to be like, you know, this is not a job. This is a game. And so if this is like playing like this and thinking more intentionality and that kind of stuff makes the game more fun, then do it. If it makes it less fun, then don't worry about it.
Well, I think it's also each person has to find their own way, you know, to whatever goals they personally value and want to achieve. So, to anyone who is watching, I'd say definitely, you know, take some of these to heart, see how they feel. If you succeed, great. If you fail, see where you failed and how you can improve. And I tell you, this has been a delightful experience. You know, NoLucksGiven is a great coach. He made me feel much more comfortable than I would have, I think, with someone who's got, let's say, a more harsh coach personality. You made this a pleasure. So I just want to give that feedback to you and to people who are listening.
I forgot to make this joke, maybe because it wasn't top of mind, but have you seen the movie Whiplash?
I have not.
Okay, it's a crazy movie. It's on Netflix right now if you've got a Netflix subscription. It is basically a movie about like a crazy band teacher who's very into like pushing their students and yelling at them and calling them names and stuff like that. And it's with J.K. Simmons, and he's fantastic.
He's great.
Yeah. But I watched that movie yesterday, and I was joking to my partner that it was getting me in the mood to be a coach for. But yeah, obviously, not how I actually wanted to coach. But I think that this worked out well because I really did not feel like I was like super hand-holdy, and I really felt like you found your way through most of it. But in a way where, yeah, there was a lot of like specific things to think about as far as like post-game feedback, different things like, I'm just noticing like something else in my notes here. There was a game where your opponent, it's not even worth bringing up, but like, I'll just say it now because I'm bringing this up because it's irrelevant, and I'm bringing it up as an example of irrelevant things to think about. Because, like, there's no way you can keep all of these things in your mind, I guess, is part of it. Like, it's information overload. But I think the fundamentals for people to think about are still good, and still something that even coming out of this, I think you can still work on. And so I'll cover my tangent real quick, and then I'll get back to the fundamentals. But there was a game where your opponent played Hawkeye Kate Bishop. I think their name was, like, bigger fan of Hawkeye than you or something, but one of the locations was Jotunheim. They wound up getting Pim Arrow and Grapple Arrow, but if they had gotten Acid Arrow and were able to play that into Jotunheim, that would have been bad for you. This might all be going all over your head because I just happen to have a really good memory for some of this kind of stuff. But
sure.
That happened in the game. It's not important. The important thing is, when should you be snapping if your opponent, because like when I play, so here's how I get ahead of it. Imagine you're like, the clock runs down, the clock is almost about to expire, and then your opponent snaps in any given game. Well, then you have like, let's say there's 2 seconds left on the turn timer. You then have 2 seconds to figure out if you're going to retreat, right? And that can be an awkward spot.
Yep.
If your opponent snaps with not much time left on the clock. However, when I am playing Marvel Snap, I think about every single turn. I go, if my opponent snaps here, do I retreat? And I'm already ready for it. Whenever my opponents snap, I already know if I am planning on retreating or if I'm already staying in. It's never a surprise to me.
Yep. And that way you can't get caught out.
Exactly. And we talked about like, is the snap a measure of, and I think in your like second game, you said, oh, I'm going to snap and that'll put some pressure on. And I personally, I love that as a mindset. I love snapping to put the pressure on my opponent. However, when my opponent snap against me, that's never pressure. That's no sweat off my back. I mean, sometimes when I'm doing commentary and in a tournament, there's like a lot to think about and I'm trying to think through all of my plays for the audience, which can slow me down and stuff. But otherwise, I already know what I'm doing. And you know, that's not going to happen in every scenario. Sometimes I'm playing and I'm making breakfast or something. Yeah, you can certainly get caught out, but I think that, yeah, just thinking about that is always good. And the other thing, and this even happened I had a video last week. It might have even been a video that you commented on. I don't remember, but it was my video for the Snap Judgments League. And it's really funny to go back and watch it because on turn 1 of it was a conquest match. And on turn 1 of the first game of that match, I knew the 12 cards in my opponent's deck because Daily Bugle gave me one of the cards from my opponent's deck. And from there, I was like, oh, I think they're playing these 12 cards. And I say that in the live commentary in the video. And what is funny about that is after the match, my opponent messaged me and they were like, yeah, I thought this would be a fun deck. I thought it might surprise you and it might catch you a little bit off guard. And then I posted the video and they saw that and they commented and they were like, oh, I did not surprise you for 1 second. You knew before the first turn even played what cards I was playing. And that's not feasible for everybody. I pay a lot of attention to Marvel Snap as a content creator and as somebody who like really loves this game and finds it a lot of fun.
Yep.
But here's another thing that you can do. You're watching the KM Best videos. If there's a deck that you don't think you're going to play, because you don't own all the cards, you can still look at the deck and get an idea. And then when you start to see some of those cards from your opponent, there's a decent chance that other people, I mean, KM Best, pretty popular YouTuber, and there's other popular YouTube channels as well. But there's a decent chance that when you see those cards that are featured in one of the decks that KM was showing off, then you're going to start to recognize some of those other cards. And I think I'm talking over myself a little bit now, but yeah,
it's a good point to reinforce because I often will. I will sometimes subconsciously intuit when people are playing particular types of decks, but to actually intentionally do it is a valid point, and it's something that I need to work on because I agree. If I happen to know which chess books a particular chess player has read, front to back, I now know partially how he thinks and what he's likely to do, and that's what you have with Marvel Snap. If you can predict or see what deck
even in a much more concrete way, where like you know which chess pieces your opponent even has on their board, which imagine playing a game of chess where you didn't know which chess pieces they have on their board. It would be embarrassing. It can be very very white and black in that aspect.
Indeed.
Cool. Well, thank you very much, Jim, for playing on the channel here for us, and I'm glad we could get you to Infinite and get you that sweet card back.
Oh, I'm actually surprised that I got to Infinite tonight. I thought we were just going to be doing some strategy, and the fact that we were able to push through and succeed, dude, I truly appreciate you.
Awesome. All right. Thank you guys very much for watching. Thank you, Jim, for playing with us. I'm NoLucksGiven. Peace.